Hello, everyone, and welcome to the ALGS preseason qualifier number 2 for North America. My name is Melkrit, joined once again by the amazing Dia. And Dia, we have an amazing set of games to look forward to with an amazing set of teams, a lot of new faces, but also a lot of returning ones from last week.
We certainly do. I mean, the split's pretty darn 50-50 as to who's made it back and who, is going to be a new face today and trying to accumulate those points. As a reminder, if you are just tuning in, if you're going, oh my god, ALGS Year 3 started already, what does this mean? These are the preseason qualifiers, and so what we're competing for today among the 20 teams that have gotten themselves here throughout a bunch of brackets this weekend is for the one Pro League spot that you got at the very top. If you collect the most points today, you make it to Pro League. No more.
Yeah, and it's a huge deal, right? We're fighting for one more spot. If you win today, you are off to Pro League, but also have to continue performing in all of these games because those points will also add up. The only other way you're going to make it into Pro League is if you're one of those top teams at the end of it all, right? After all 4 preseason qualifiers, the top teams that are left in terms of points will also get their spot into the Pro League. So all of these games are extremely important, but obviously looking for that crown, looking for that first place, and taking a look at the teams that we have here fighting for that singular ticket into Pro League. I mean, it is incredibly stacked. And like you said, they've already been through a massive bracket of teams. I mean, there have been swaths of players across all sorts of skill levels, skill ranges, and honestly, a lot of teams that aren't here that we definitely expected to see, at least in some ways. Some of the teams that are more experienced in the competitive scene, they're also not here. So it just goes to show how insanely competitive and how variable these tournaments can be.
Are you going to say it or shall I? Because one of the things that I was thinking going into today is that our most notably, our second place team is missing from last week. And congratulations to them, sent on Esports Arena to the Pro League, but slept on showed us something totally different last week that was this high-octane, really impressive playstyle, sort of out of nowhere, and they didn't quite make it in to today's quals. Instead, SZN, the third-place team, did end up dominating their semifinals group to make it here.
Yeah, and the dominance has been from very different teams. Slept on, definitely a team that I was looking forward to seeing in this top 20, but they aren't here. So again, there's just a lot of people fighting for it, right? Maybe they did get slept on earlier, but I guess they're the ones that got put to sleep in this second Pro League qualifier. But I expect to see them coming back extra hungry for the third qualifier. But for the time being, Dia, we are on to game number 1 of the preseason qualifier number 2 for North America, and we are starting on Storm Point.
Starting there, 3 games on Storm Point, then we'll move ourselves over to World's Edge. So for those of you who are missing, oh, where did World's Edge go? Don't worry. We'll be there in just a few. But with all these new teams and with one of the most chaotic maps in the game, we've already got a contest over there at Mill. Blackhand going up against Rack Attack, who fought tooth and nail for Mill just 1 week ago, and now have to fight for it again with a team that is more than experienced at fighting for Mill and their landing spot, Big Mod on World's Edge.
And we talked about how exciting it is to have Blackhand in the mix. They weren't here last week. One of the newcomers to this top 20 in the finals of the preseason qualifier. So here they are. They're already looking to make an early mark, but they aren't the only contest on the map. If you take a look at the kill feed, we're seeing some of the other contests play out. But for the time being, Blackhand has 2 blues and a purple shield to work with. So they are on the offensive. But Yasuo eating a lot of damage from a side angle from Impulse. And that's massive. That's a down onto Yasuo.
2v3 has always been so easy to execute on. Yasuo now completely thirsted. They're not going to have the chance to pick him back up, and Blackhand cracked for flesh as well, being pushed by Rack Attack, one of our very few teams to be confident enough to whip out the Vantage today. Bowser,
baby,
using that one. He's going to be looking for a few extra kills, but they lose Impulse in the meantime, and surely cannot lose this contest to Blackhand. Ticking for 9. PK does the work of the up-close combat, and Shub is down, leaving just Diff Q up and fighting for the team. It's a 1 versus 2. Seer's got all the info, and apparently that info is enough to make him turn tail. I like the call from Blackhand because it's about accumulating points today, not necessarily winning this contest.
And so for the time being, none of the contests so far play out in team wipes, though we get to see their phase 1 actually seemingly winning out on their contest at the moment. and actually finishing off that kill. So yeah, Blackhand having to run for the hills, and here we get to see it. And we talked about this potential contest right early on, but this is actually a different team. Here we see Your Doom, Your Wraith, and Sia actually the ones fighting out against FaZe 1, who is now hightailing it as they fully had their Horizon thirsted luck-based killer is out of commission.
And Skies, one of our really impressive teams from last week in terms of their performance, ended up out of nowhere placing an 8th and have returned today to collect even more points and maybe, just maybe, if they've improved enough, take away that first place spot. FaZe 1 will be handicapped at the start of the game because though we haven't lost a squad yet with 2 teams missing members, things are going to be really difficult for those that are not operating as 3-man squads, even though FaZe 1 are going to be able to get plenty of loot as they move down towards Thunderwatch.
Yeah, and that's really great for Skies. Like you said, they're kind of newcomers really breaking into the scene in a huge way, going from, I think, names that we weren't all that familiar with in a lot of these higher competitive spheres to suddenly performing well here. Their second final of these pre-qualifiers, and of course already breaking into tournaments like Oversight, so doing really well for themselves. And here winning out early, at least partially winning out on this first contest, means that they'll have a little bit of space to work with, have that KP in their back pocket. But I think something that's important to consider was we did see another team flying in this general direction. I believe it was Calando that was supposed to land somewhere in this general vicinity, but might have peeled off to a different POI, recognizing that there might have been a 3-way contest on the way. And it looks like Zach TML going to try and recover their fallen teammate here.
I don't think they make that, if I'm honest. I mean, just
so risky.
Looking at the timer.
Brave.
I'll keep my eye on the kill feed, and, well, we'll see some other Valcoats that might get a few more people rotated into position. Redeem, one of our squads, already in position, and while we are on Redeem, I know that Z Davis is doing a watch party today. We are thankful to have him with us. Been a big part of the pro scene, and with the accident he's been in recently, though he's going to be out of commission for a few weeks, he is okay. Though Cruisen is going to be taking his place, and Redeem are going to be missing an IGL. It's surprising even that with that they've got him here. Let's see how they can perform.
Yeah, absolutely. And here we see the fight breaking out in a big way for them. They actually managed to eliminate Void with a little bit of help, it seems, from Glitch Gaming, who is on the other side of this river here. So holding down for now, and honestly a really interesting spot for them to hold, but they have quite a bit of presence. So if they're able to defend here effectively, they can get a lot of information from teams that are inevitably going to be rotating this direction. But speaking of information, Dia, Machin back on that crypto, probably one of the best characters right now. If you're running that, you have that drone that can give you so much information so safely, and there we see it, maybe informing their decision a little bit about what they want to do here, seeing that there's 3 members strong in that little choke near the river, and Glitch Gaming is going to go ahead and make their rotation instead.
And Glitch Gaming are a team that has been basically everywhere in Apex Legends ever since last week's preseason qualifiers, especially. They showed up in in both series equals, or rather Machin certainly did. And I am curious as to how they'll perform today, because after finishing 14th last week, they are pretty darn consistent. But as you mentioned, the fact that they choose to run this Crypto Watson often leaves them in a position where it's either placement points or bust. And that's a tough strat to be running in today's meta.
Yeah, absolutely. The aggression that gets turned up with the current meta means that zone is kind of one of those strategies that is really easy to have fall behind, right? Like, you can get there early enough. And actually, we saw that in the first qualifier where Glitch Gaming was also a part of, where they were making some rotations, in some cases getting bullied into pretty clean rotations. But once they were there and they were getting swung on by that multitude of Horizons and Zeers, I mean, it's so difficult to defend in a lot of those scenarios. A lot of those rings are not kind to these zone teams in a meta like this. So obviously curious to see what they're going to do. Another returning team, BR Demons. There we see clearing IMC, and that's another team that we definitely want to have our eyes on, because they ran down so many squads in the first qualifier, but were definitely, I think, stopped in their tracks is a good way to put it, in the actual finals of that qualifier. So maybe looking for a little bit of redemption here, and hopefully a better performance, and maybe even a qualification to Pro League.
Now, as Skies are setting themselves up in what they believe to be the best position, they will be on height, fortunately enough for them. But the problem with this is that they're going to have to, well, figure out how they're approaching what is ultimately a low ground that the zone is pulling to. Though they've got themselves a pretty good position over by the Prowler Den, they have to approach the Lagoon, and the Lagoon can get really difficult to play both in and out of with the disparity in height, and the fact that so many teams have already tried coexisting there and failed.
And that's actually why I kind of like this play from Redeem here. It seems like hiding in plain sight, right? But they do get a lot of presence there. They have a lot of angles on some of the teams that might be rotating that way. There we see where this ring is likely pulling. And as you said, it's pulling straight towards this Lagoon, actually almost dead center on that second ring. So that north side, I mean, you can already see how populated it's starting to get. We see Berry Veggieplex that is about to have to make the rotation. Nightmare is also up there and likely to swing into these chokes. It's going to get so crowded. So the longer you can hold out while also being able to have that presence to pressure those teams as they walk in, the better you can sort of defend your spot and hopefully find your way into the late game that way.
We talked about Kalando a little bit earlier. They're going to be taken off for the moment, but they're a squad to keep your eyes on. If you've been around Apex for a long time, you have seen these names. Although for reasons unknown, Sushi has recently changed his name to Suchi, and I'm completely uncertain why. That is likely going to be the most confusing thing about their gameplay today, is this team does tend to be mostly aggressive and pretty darn predictable because they have been around the scene for so long. They, more often than not, make plays that at the very least make sense.
Yeah, and here we see one that's pretty sensible, in my opinion. They have, I think it was a little on the coin flip side. We aren't exactly confident that there won't be a team here, but holding the spot early can both be a blessing and a curse, of course, because many of the other Valks that are going to be swinging late with that skyward dive might be looking for this as a sort of last-ditch effort to try and get into zone. And here we see a team that is not struggling at all to get into zone already very early here. And that's actually going to be I Loved Her, which we don't have the most intel on. Dia, I think we can agree that this is a team that's a little bit newer on our radar, but here they're already setting up very early. They have the Watson there to sort of hold it down, have that tool for those battles of attrition that they're certainly going to have to deal with later. So for the time being, they're pretty posted up.
They're unknowns to the rest of the lobby in terms of where they're placed right now as well. Being able to hold up in Lagoon, they've got a lot of space between them and other squads who, again, don't want to contest a POI like this, push onto height, and thus they've pushed themselves pretty confidently with their one kill into the top 18. The thing is, this is not your average pub game, as many of these teams and as many of our viewers very well know. The fact that we're in top 18 really doesn't mean anything because you have to hit 15th place to get at least one placement point, and higher than that if you want some kills to go along with it.
Yeah, they're not teams dropping off drop, excuse me, just falling. You know, you have 15 squads rotating into ring number 2 on your first ranked game of the day. It really doesn't work that way. And here we see teams already having to make these rotations that are going to be very well populated. Again, this is the northern area in general where we were seeing a lot of teams that are likely to collapse, and BR Demons is going to have to deal with this spawn in front of them because otherwise they have a wide river to walk in front of them, and Aiden already doing a great job opening up some damage.
Outside the zone for the second ring in a row, they do take a little bit of damage, but we saw them in that IMC earlier, and they are more than ready to fight. The kill feed, Plane's gone down, taken down by Glitch Gaming, and BR Demons have swiped Bursty instantly. A fight up against Nightmare for the BR Demons on the edge of the ring. It's a fight that I didn't expect to go this way. Nightmare tends to fight really early and often. The fact that right now they are running from BR Demons says a lot about the caliber of this squad.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, BR Demons, they were the ones farming all of the kills in preseason qualifier number 1, excuse me. And here they're showing exactly how they do it. Their gunplay is impeccable. Their timing on a lot of these engages is so clean. Catches that team completely off guard, even with that high ground. High ground sometimes feels like an illusion in this meta because that opening damage that a lot of the Valkyries can do, and following that up with the likes of Aiden on something like a Horizon, I mean, you can deal out damage so quickly before the team can even respond, set up any sort of defense, and there we see it work perfectly. BR Demons clears out a little bit of space on the edge of ring and continues their escapade towards the ring.
Rack Attack have just eliminated MMW, and this is where the squads start dropping, folks. This is where the action really happens. Rack Attack have set themselves up in Jurassic with a minute left to go, and though the Prowlers are invading, nobody else likely will. They've got a reposition coming pretty soon, likely off the back of Impulse's Skyward Dive, and need to make their way even further east into this ring. But the kills they've already been able to pick up, things should look good for them. It's just a matter of how this rotation actually works out, because as is always the curse with Skyward Dives, you just don't have that much information that some other teams definitely have. BR Demons taking another fight, finding some serious damage, and a shield that Brave the Destroyer is just about to go off, happens just in time, but not to save his teammates. Reeds and Vayne are down, and it's Force that's taken them there. The PK is gonna tick, but not for nearly enough, as BR Demons are taken out by Nerf.
And this is the team that I was so excited to see there, right? Nerf in the mix here, and they do a fantastic job. We saw the knocks there all coming out from Force, but obviously that team, impeccable 3v3 defense there. And there we see the flip side of the coin with holding out some of those edge teams that are a little late to the party. Right now, though, Rack Attack, the ones involved in a party of their own, and this last member trying to hold behind this shield wall and push, shreds it down with the Volt. That's going to be Glitch Gaming, who seemingly didn't move at all from where we saw them earlier, taken down by Rack Attack.
Now, this should never have happened. Rack Attack knew that Glitch were here, walked into them, took that 3v3 cold, and just bet that they were better. In this situation, they certainly flipped that coin right. Howdy are gone as well, one of our big question marks going into this week, and evidently answered at least in game one with a sit back down. This is the ALGS season, or year 3 qualifiers, and you're gonna have to try again.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's no reason, especially with Advantage, which you kind of see opening up that early damage on a lot of those engages by taxing teams that rotate. There was no taxing to be had. There was a giant fence there. And right now, Berry Veggieplex putting up a giant fence. And by that, I mean a giant shield of their own. They are plenty healthy going into the latter half of this fight. 5FL getting absolutely tanked down right now, and that's all 3 eliminated. 3 kills over to Berry Veggieplex.
A pretty terrible spot, though, for Berry Veggieplex, and the fact is that Skinny Veggie Ninja, he's got the right thing going on. Checking out what other squads might be in the area, because they are very exposed right now with no bubble. 13 squads left, and anybody could jump at them at any time. Sky is jumping on someone right now, looking for a kill. Nightmare are gone, and so are Echo's boys, as Skies wrap that fight real quickly, get the res, and move themselves forward.
Yeah, beautiful stuff there from Skies. They continue to capitalize on their position on the ring, and now they have a lot of moments of clarity to work with here because their rotation has been cleared out so much. They don't have an easy feat here on the walk, and in fact, they might be forced to take a less than optimal Valkyrie ultimate to find their way in, but they can loot up for now. Think about their rotation just for a tad longer, though. 45 seconds, DM. We know how deadly that 4th ring can be, but already so many teams fell just getting to those chokes, just having an opportunity to figure out how they're going to break their way in. They haven't even dealt with the teams that have been holding in zone.
I loved her. Likely still the team sitting up on the height in Lagoon. Have been all right so far. Again, no real kills to their name. Haven't seen them showing up there, but the placement points are going to mean a lot. What's going to be really crazy, though, is how all 3 of the teams, soon to be 4, if Skies join them, are going to have to walk through Redeem in order to access this ring. Redeem, who have held this little waterfall swamp area for a very long time, and who I'm sure are ready to tango.
Yeah, that is an absolutely beautiful spot. We called it out so early on, but they've managed to hold it this entire time because it is really an overcommitment to go and push that, but it's also kind of just something that you want to punish, right? They're so in the open. I guess it's that double-edged sword, and right now they're working on the better edge, keeping themselves safe, and also making sure that all of these rotations from teams like Chatham is Prime, like Calando, like I Loved Her, about to have a really rough time. Adium actually starting off their rough time, getting knocked down in that Skyward Dive.
Normally I'd say watch Southpaw here, but fate has already been so cruel to them that I can only say avert your eyes for what's going to happen in this area of the ring. Calando have lost 2. I Loved Her are gone like that, and so are Calando. Skies barely trying to sneak in right here. Redeem, with nobody else to focus on, have absolutely turned towards them and the plethora of death boxes that are here. Brojo's not going to push his luck, but oh my god, the carnage, Mello.
Yeah, I mean, that was insane. And that really was the situation where Redeem just had a lot of their work done for them. They didn't have to give up a lot of angles and pressure themselves when those teams were kind of just falling onto each other, either with skyward dives or with just rushes last second. In the end, Skies wins out. But on the northern side, we have plenty of engagements where the likes of Phase 1 have also been knocked out in the process.
CN going out in 7th this time around. One of the things that we'll be keeping track of, as they were the team that was fragging out the hardest yesterday in the semis. And Rack Attack, interestingly enough, with only 6 teams left, have a lot of free space should they want to try and clear out their back, something they're pinging out right now. Very Vegiplex to take an engagement, and with the 301 turns, literally doesn't get a chance to play the game. Skinny Veggie Ninja does pop up, not finding the knock just yet, but Messiah is down. It's a 1 for 2 that ultimately becomes a 1 for 3 as it's Money Mollis traded over and not being able to be picked back up. And here comes the third party, likely Rack Attacker in, and yep, that's Rack Attack. They know what's up, they know it's time to third party, and we're going to be going down to 4 squads now.
Yeah, when you see Rock, you know that big body of the Gibby is coming for you. They actually polish off that team, and we are down to just 4 squads, not even in the final ring close quite yet. Rack Attack sitting on 3 reds, and we talked about this vantage and that potential strength that it has now that they can hold so many of these angles. It's going to be so dangerous. They're going to be taxing teams for their resources left and right here in this end game. So right now they're feeling pretty happy. Meanwhile, Redeem has picked up at least, it looks like, 4 kills from what I can see in the top right. So they've gotten some value out of this, but now this end game is going to be infinitely more difficult. There we see the black hole. There we see them breaking it, but they do eat a lot of damage. Joey Black going down, Crossjoe going down to half flesh health and actually getting finished off in the end. Skies with the full swing, and right now they have the upper hand, but they might be more people joining this party right now.
Rack Attacker absolutely looking for this, but a turnaround is coming for you. Skies take down Bowser and force Rack Attack to reset, dropping the bubble and losing a lot of momentum. Impulse has got to be able to clean this up, but only barely cracks shields, and Skies could still take down Rack Attack as well. They've lost another. Impulse is down, and where is the third party coming from? Redeem are still in this, and Skies fighting this out with slivers of health on the low ground. Surely have got to go out sometime.
Right now, Redeem and Skies are sharing the corner of a rock. That is ridiculous, but Rack Attack does have to back up a little bit, overcommitted, and now Skies commits to the fight themselves, but look at the flesh health left on your right. They're going to have to deal so much damage here, and they do exactly that. They eliminate Rack Attack, and now Redeem as a duo starts to find their push, and Blakeu, the last solo that has been holding out that entire time, finds their way into a top 3. Can Redeem clean up this 2v2 situation and win this one out? Crossjoe going down, cruising with 50 health left total. That's going to be 1 elim, and that shield swap is empty, Dia.
Blakeu could do this, though. Skies are healing up, and it's a 1v1 over here. You pick the right end of this engagement, and we could see Team Smiley, who barely qualified to today, making it in with our first game win. Your Wraith gonna bait for the res. Not going to play this too risky just yet. Neither of these wants to take that gamble. Instead, a really nice beam sends your Wraith over the top. Reload on the car. He's not in, but Skies are down. Redeem with Cruisin on his sliver of health has to go up against Blakeu, who's also on his sliver of health. How did he get so low? 50 HP left for him. This could be Team Smiley walking away with it. This could be Redeem without their IGL taking the first game of the day, and God knows what it'll be, Mello. It just comes down to this 1v1. A terrible res for Cruisin, as Crojo still has to scout it out for him. The heals are slow, but they are coming, and Team Smiley might be moving a little bit faster. Eva 8 and the G7 scout, not ideal, but it's good enough with that angle. Reload not even going to be hit as he whips this one out at close range, takes out the G7 and takes the win for Team Smiley.
What a way to steal that one. Beautiful sneak there, and that was so dirty. Oh my god, that is not the way I thought this game would go down. But Blakeu, the last member standing for his squad, is able to take it down. They win game 1, even though Redeem held on for so long, managed to outfight in the worst of circumstances against Skies. Not once, not twice, but I think 3 times total there. In the end, they aren't able to hold, and the 1v1 goes the way of Blakeu.
Still a pretty good game for Redeem, all things considered. A second place with plenty of KP should be good for them. But you know what? It's game one. It might not have been clean Apex Legends, but Mello, it was fun Apex Legends. I enjoyed
Oh,
watching it.
100%. Yeah, and I mean, I think there was a lot of interesting notes that we can take from that, though. Namely, I think Redeem, right? Like Redeem has some success in a spot that I don't think everyone, like the average person watching, you don't consider that playable like early, right? Like you're looking at where these players are sitting in. It isn't the optimal scenario that you would hope for. You don't have building, you don't necessarily have the most cover, but that cover, the way that it's set up, allowed Redeem to capitalize massively throughout the entire game, especially in the late game. Rack Attack was the team that was, I think, farming up a lot of the edge, though, and I think opened up a lot of space. So, again, the crashing of the late rotations meant that Redeem made a very interesting play there that netted them a lot of kills and placement.
Yeah, and it really is, I think, one of the better strategies for a zone team, too. As you talked about, you tend to have a riskier playstyle. Redeem wanted to play the zone, and thus, they ended up picking a spot that no one else would really focus. I think it's one of the things that we often see a lot of teams fall into as sort of a fallacy is, well, this spot is good, and it's open, we should take it. And so many other teams want to commit for that, because if they win, it means so much. If somebody wins a fight against Redeem in this little waterfall area, that's alright. But I'm going to pause all that point, because we got to watch the clutch up from Team Smiley. This has got to mean the world to them. Seeing that Team Smiley didn't make it in last week, and their first appearance gets them a win, it's big.
Yeah, I mean, French kiss to the way they just snuck behind, really put on their best spy impression there, sneaking up and getting almost 3 full pumps of the Eva just to start off the fight. So really an unexpected ending, like you said, to that play. But Team Smiley, what a way to start things off. And here we see the results of that first game, ordered by Final Placement. Team Smiley taking that first place finish. But looking at Redeem, they actually outscored them, managed to net themselves 10 kills out of that spot, Dia.
Yeah, I mean, Smiley are even tied with Skies right now, who had their own really good performance with a 7-kill game and a nice amount of placement, I believe, ending in third with the 1v1 between them and Redeem. However, Rack Attack almost topping the leaderboards as well. Had they moved one placement further on, we'd see their names right up there alongside Redeem. And the fact is that, with all things considered, with how much of a wash this game could have been with teams searching for and finding kills consistently, we had a pretty even game one.
Yeah, the point distribution isn't all that insane, especially when you consider the way some of the teams approach the game. Right? I think I'll be bold enough to say that I think Rack Attack was doing something that SZN was actually doing really well in the first qualifier, where they were sort of working the edge and kind of transitioning from holding a spot to attacking a spot, transitioning from a spot, attacking a spot, and holding that spot. And I think, for example, Glitch is one of those teams that was responsible for gatekeeping that team from them just flooding the rest of that end game, but they weren't able to do it, which meant Rack Attack had so many resources. They had kills, they had evos going in. They were, I think, one of the first teams, if not the only team, to be triple reds by the time we hit that 5th and 6th ring. So all of that really working in their favor there, and they're able to net themselves a lot of kills on the way.
I like that you mentioned SZN. They would have stood out to a lot of people, especially if you're reading their names right now and you're more Pro League familiar, as formerly XSET, and now playing through the preseason quals. They actually had a game last week that blew me out of the water. This is a squad, I think, like, very few, even in this level of competition, that can take a game and just run it through to the end, make it look like no question. My wondering is really whether they'll actually get there today, because we saw it for one game last week. Building on that consistency is going to be the thing that SZN struggle with throughout this entire preseason quals, if not challenger circuit, should they not make it. And I'm going to be keeping my eye on them to see exactly how far they've come in a week.
And it will be important to adapt to the lobby, right? Because you can be a little bit more predictable in some scenarios if you've been around the scene for a long time. Like you said, Upsuchi and that squad has been, representing as TPM. They had their run in the challenger circuit, very well reputable, but that does come with the unfortunate reality that some teams might be able to read what you're doing. And in these lobbies, if you don't have as clean of a read, if you don't know where a lot of these rotations are going to crash, if you don't know what teams you should expect to be holding the center zone, it's a lot lot more difficult to capitalize on some of those game plan strategies that you can really utilize to abuse your ability to 3v3 and out 3v3 people. I think one really shocking finish there in 18th place is Black Hand, who we were hyping up a lot because we know that team can steamroll when they get going, when they get that momentum in some of those games. But there we see them dropping out early, and I think that had a big effect on the latter half of that game.
I think it was as surprising to them as it was to me that the mill contest didn't go Black Hand's way. And I have no doubt in my mind, Mello, that we are going to see it again. Do not make any mistakes, guys. This is no replay package. This is game number 2. We're dropping in already to the second game of the day. Woohoo! And I am 99.9% certain that that contest on Mill happens again.
Yep, 100%. And another contest we should expect to see will also be that phase 1 contest that they were on the losing side of. Not completely wiped, and were actually able to play out for a couple more kills later in that game, so props to them. But these are all things that you have to consider in the back of your mind as you're dropping into each one of these games. And this is just on Stormpoint. We haven't gotten around to the potential contests we're going to see on World's Edge. So right now, if not for your pride, for being able to get some points on the board, DivQ and the rest of this crew are 100% going to be fighting with everything they got here.
The additional 3 points sure would be nice, but Rack Attack, if they're free, will take them every day, especially with Black Hand being the only squad to run Bangalore in these games, something that a lot of people thought would be valuable on Stormpoint when it was first introduced, that quickly fell off. I'm wondering what exactly they'll look like and how they'll use it if they're skirmishing, let alone if they'll change it during the next couple games if this continues. Fortunately for them as well, this is the second game on Stormpoint, the second game of 3. So if they do lose this contest, there's only one more before we transition to World's Edge.
Yeah, and this would also be nice for Rack Attack to get the run back, right? To get the back-to-back, on this contestant. Right now with 2 blues and a purple. I think they're on the winning side of the loot RNG at the very least. Not sure about their weapons, but definitely confident here. And they have that Gibby to work with, so they're more than happy to start this fight up. Eating a full blue shield of damage, though, and only trading out 50 means this might be the engage for Black Hand.
Thermite does make things more difficult for Rack. Gets to back off and heal up even through that Thermite that ticked him for a bit. Bubbled down for just a second. We'll have to see when this crucial cooldown comes back up for Rack Attack. Bowser certain to be getting a little bit of extra ult on this Vantage as well. First bullet's up right now, and that extra DPS can turn a fight if he lands it at the right moment. As Black Hand take height, landing any shots on them will be difficult, and it's more of a pressure out than anything. They're not even fighting. They are just pushing Rack out of their POI.
And that's really interesting, but having that resource down, not having that bubble available, even when you have the better shields, and having to commit it once again means that they just have to run for it right now. But it might be the fact that they know other squads might be starting to lick their lips for a potential third party here. So possibly a good amount of awareness here for Rack Attack to back up. But looking at where this ring is pulling, they're going to have to move through this team one way or another. They have the Valkyrie to work with. They have Bowser on that Vantage to open up a little bit of room with some damage from the sniper rifle, but this is not going to be any easier than it was last game. In fact, they're going to have at least one more team to deal with in their path.
And at the moment, with MMW so close, I think Rack Attack have likely sniffed this out as well and are waiting for the metaphorical storm to pass. They do have a trident nearby that they can use to relocate a little faster into the ring, even passing south through Cenote should they desire it. Even MMW, though, recognize, you know what, action's probably not happening. Might be because we're here. They end up backing off as well and making use of the replicator while they still have it. I appreciate they've left Silent behind just to keep tabs on the situation.
Absolutely, and I think that's a really heads-up play here from both Rack Attack and Black Hand. Black Hand recognizing that this can become a timing issue if they don't start making their way towards executing their game plan on their rotation. Waiting out on Rack Attack and hoping that they can clean up those 3 kills might not be worth it if they can't get to ring in the end. And Rack Attack being patient, just waiting out, understanding that Black Hand will eventually have to move and maybe open up some space for themselves to be able to rotate out with the car or with the Valkyrie ultimate that will soon be on deck.
Gaming making their rotation through Antenna. Zephyr and I earlier today were discussing the POIs that we think are death traps, and this is mine. Antenna terrifies me to this day. I do not go through it. no matter what. But Glitch Gaming, they've decided otherwise, and you know what? I understand, because the zone is pulling here, so it's going to be a pretty nice look if they can hold on to this area. And granted, it's difficult to access.
Yeah, 100%. And in fact, not having the horizon means that if this team gets split up a little too much, if you have a member that panics a little bit and actually drops down, it won't be an easy feat to get them anywhere back near your team. So Glitch Gaming, when they set up this bunker, this is a massive commitment for them right now. BR Demons, though, full commit here on 8-3v3, and they've already lost a member. Aiden the Destroyer going down very low, and they're trying to trade out, but Reed's is thirsted, Vayne is cracked, and Aiden the Destroyer does not have angles on this. They will be seemingly on the losing side and potentially getting engaged on here by Nerf.
With the Seer, they should be able to sniff almost anything out, so there's really no running from this. Nerf still are being pushed back, however. Turn's actually taken down in a surprising turn of events. Up comes Force, taking down Aiden the Destroyer, and finally cleaning up BR Demons, though they put up one heck of a fight for a two-man. Turns should be rezzed shortly, and Nerf, again, I say again, should be safe from any third parties.
And I think this was a run back, if I'm not mistaken. I think Force once again being one of the contributing factors to BR Demons being knocked out outside the top 15 even. So it looks like BR Demons have some demons of their own on Storm Point. For the time being, they will be knocked out, and we'll have to look forward to that third game to maybe change the narrative. But like you said, the Death Trap is being set up by so many teams right now, and seemingly actually, Glitch Gaming didn't love their previous positioning. They've already moved, and I want to argue that this is a slightly better spot for them just because of, one, where this ring might potentially pull. If it pulls up towards that hill, they have slightly better vantage both in front and behind them. And also, it's not a team right in the middle of this terrifying POI that you really don't want to be, so good on them for recognizing that and moving early.
Yeah, since Glitch now have the Watson inside this building, actually angling on them will be a little bit easier, but nobody wants to take this fight in the middle of the open. I don't mind the Glitch move either, and in fact, it gets them closer to the actual action that'll be happening. Action that Skies may very well be starting as their next door neighbor sitting outside of Antenna as well. We do have the chance that this pulls outside of Antenna, and these two teams are more than happy if that happens.
And it seems to be doing exactly that, pulling over towards this choke facing Launchpad, where it can very well end right outside of it. And yeah, right dead center on a choke, which means that the way that you work this end game is going to be so critical for so many of these teams, because this is a clear example, Dia, of one of those rings where you can't get to the center spot early. It is not safe. It is far from God's spot. You have to be able to work your backside that entire time to clear out all of those members that are going to be crashing at the same time, so that you're one of the last teams up on that high ground. So Skies, again, another team maybe recognizing that and holding out on that building, because it could be critical for that in game.
5FL trying to clear out their backsides. Do already have knocks, who should be making short work the team in front of them. Not too long for the world. Shadamus Prime, surprisingly, leave us early, but Dig goes down while all this is happening, and yeah, we're rolling up to it with the Gibby. It's the Berry Boys, Berry Veggieplex, who come in for a quick cleanup on 5FL.
And there might actually be another cleanup coming, but look at how healthy Berry Veggieplex is. I don't know if they have the information. And did that get... Oh, I thought that got swallowed by a Watson gen. That was a weird sound cue, but Berry Veggieplex is able to heal up, does put down that defensive bombardment, which is one of the only ones you're going to be able to see in this lobby, except maybe Rack Attack if they make it here later on. So being able to defend for now, but this is the difficulty with some of these buildings, right? Look at how aggressive Howdy is able to get. Look at all of these angles that they're hunting for. They aren't finding them quite yet, but the Berry Boys are far from safe right now.
Howdy, who went out real early. Surprising. I think a lot of people in the first game today have the chance to make it back. They dominated as Team Meowdy, a slightly different team in the Series E quals this week, and now own the center of this building and all the death boxes that have come with it with surprisingly little, I'd say an uncharacteristically low amount of KP, but they're pushing Berry Veggieplex. Looking for them at the very top of this building without taking any unnecessary risks. We'll see who comes out on top of this 3v3.
Oh, and actually swinging backwards. Very interestingly timed Berry Veggieplex attack there, but doesn't net them quite that much. And Veggie Ninja actually falling low. And in fact, Mullis actually going to fall down completely. Howdy trading one out. Actually hasn't had any members traded, excuse me. They are just on the front foot of this fight, already taken one down. Cody shooting up towards the skies, doing work with that Peacekeeper right now. Howdy is making quick work of the Berry boys right now, Dia.
Cody, please! Howdy look so good already, and it's just one member left, so they are big chilling as all three of them push straight into the face of this Gibraltar, eliminating their next door neighbors. And it was a cascade of kills that allowed them to do so. They're not the only team going down though, as it seems like we're losing SZN as well. Blackhand on the push, and as we cut over to them, SZN expire, leaving Blackhand the victors in this quadrant of the map.
Yeah, and Blackhand, one of the scarier 3v3s you can run into on the map right now, especially with this addition of DiffQ, who has done so much for the team in these qualifiers so far, already doing a lot here for the team in terms of how they're moving and maneuvering this ring. And of course, having that Bangalore in your back pocket never hurts. Look at that. Nightmare was already potentially looking to do some damage there, but they will be negated sightlines by that smoke. And for the time being, Nightmare will continue to move on through this section. Blackhand, excuse me, will keep on moving through this section of the map, while Nightmare is on the outside a little bit looking in, and we already get a peek at where this ring is pulling. So this contentious area right now is going to be so important, Dia. The teams that win out here later in this match are going to have one of the better scenarios to play into that late game ring.
Nerf are now gone, as they will not be making it into the later game. Already into the top 12 are we. So placement points have started to be accumulated. We'll be moving on to 2 placement points very soon, and this is where you can really start to come into the money, especially if you've already got kills. You can make an argument for yourself to be in those top couple squads near the end of the match. Nightmare have very few opportunities ahead of them, though. Do they push into the squad in front, Blackhand, or do they wait around for a team that might still Valcolt over them, that might take the totally opposite route and leave Nightmare as one of the very few teams outside ring?
And Nightmare now actually on Glitch doing what Glitch was sort of doing in the previous game, but actually choosing to opt for a different angle. And they're actually walking into the mouth of this death trap that is still Antenna, though we've seen how populated that northeast side has become because of where the ring is pulling. So they have a little bit of space to work with, but Rack Attack, one of the teams that might be fighting them for this space, and they've got a sniper full for Bowser on the Vantage.
Looking good for them as they end up running up the side. 1 minute left on this ring close. Means that they've actually got a good amount of time should they choose to take an engagement. The Prowlers behind them causing a little bit of trouble, but ultimately leaving Rack Attack plenty healthy inside this cave. A brief respite from the outside forces. Not a permanent one by any means, though, and I would say creative rotation outside of the zone to get themselves a bit of a different angle.
Yeah, and they were looking for a little bit of pressure, but instead seemingly get shoved out by Nightmare, who was moving ahead of Blackhand. So potentially a fight here that didn't break out earlier, but might break out now. Dracos, though, hitting a little bit more damage than they would have liked out of an off angle, and Blackhand continues to pressure this edge, continues to pressure out of Jurassic. They've already thrown Rack Attack off of their initial rotation, seemingly initial rotation that we don't exactly know. That was their game plan to start with, and right now they're just hunting, Dia. Look at them. They're just ready for any unfortunate teams that are going to pop in way too late, and with the help of the ring, that's made it significantly easier, of course.
Blackhand have they've really taken a creative rotate, being able to make it up to the opposite side from where they started, with Nightmare seemingly chasing them the whole time, not quite able to ever catch up to Blackhand. It's like Blackhand are clearing the way and Nightmare are walking through the clear areas that Blackhand have already taken everybody out in. Since they do have a position that is still outside ring, though, they will need to reposition, and the Valkyrie is going to come in handy for that, albeit only getting them so far with the nerfs the Valkyrie encountered only a few patches ago. It's going to be a difficult decision as to where they land. The outside fence line seems to be the play, but they're landing center Antenna. What could Blackhand be thinking here?
Oh, this is really interesting. They're going to have to utilize all of the tools that they have at their disposal because they have fully committed to this fight. They want to clear this team out. This is kind of one of those last-ditch efforts where if you can't get into the zone for free, you have to fight for it. And already they're making quick work of this squad. Siwa already going down, and that is Sky's eliminated in the blink of an eye. But will they get this reset? They have Watson generator to work with that might help them out, but DivQ's flesh heal is actually canceled out. No engage quite yet, though. They hold for the time being, but will they hold for the rest of this? We will find out shortly here, and it looks like they do, Dia.
I mean, today we learned what Black Hand were thinking. They were thinking, I'll out-team fight anyone and their mother, so let's go for it. That's exactly what they did, and now they've got center antenna, a position that still is going to necessitate a rotation in from them. How does that miss? How does that miss, guys?
Hello?
He's literally standing still. Black Hand, though, don't get the kill for that. They don't get the knock. They don't get anything. Just get, you know, the chance to keep resetting.
And no members left behind here. We hear a res in the distance, but right now the team getting taken out with no reses to be seen will actually be Calando. Howdy, an absolute menace on this side of the ring, and already you can see them pinging. They understand where they have to go, but are they clear? Have they taken out enough enemies from their backside to do it? We see multiple squads that are starting to crash on this side. Rack Attack being one of them, and Bowser has actually crashed into the ground, has no health left to work with. Rack still sitting on blue shields as well, and they are eating a lot of pressure right now. Bowser getting completely eliminated and now have to play this out as a 2.
Big fights going on as well, with Redeem going down at the end of what was a very long fight. They might not be the only ones either. MMW have lost 2 now, and Black Hand are continuing to push the pace of this engagement. Rack Attack want to go for this banner so bad, but they're likely not going to be able to pick their friend back up, as now they've been wrapped on and sandwiched. Rakanishu, no health left, is going to explode, and Impulse has got very little choice but to follow, ultimately finding one, though. He almost knocks another, but doesn't quite do it. Echo Boys lose 1 for the push onto a duo.
Making it look close, and they are going to be punished for their hubris. Right now, Hand back to this team that has truly had one of the most exciting escapades throughout this map, and they continue to be a menace for these teams. They might have found another rat here. That's a beautiful near 1 clip from Shub, and that's actually Sang going down, and Thirsted. That team seemed to have gotten split as this ring closed, and Shub is going to make quick work of the rest of Team Smiley. Our Game 1 winners are knocked out.
Yeah, unfortunately for Blakeu, again a solo in this round, not able to clutch up the victory this time. It leaves them with relatively few points in this game, but still plenty on the day when we consider that very few teams are lucky enough to actually find themselves the victory. Black Hand have got a great angle as well onto Glitch, who relocated here earlier and who now hold the last building in the next zone.
Yeah, and this is a team that we were talking about, right? Glitch. They've set up in a building that has the potential to net them kills for the teams that are walking in early, but we've seen what Black Hand can do against all of the Watson squads so far. It is not enough defense to stop Black Hand when they are ready to take you down in a straight up 3v3, so a bit of opening damage there, and they do have the shield advantage. We saw 3 reds to Glitch Gaming's 3 purples, so Glitch Gaming hasn't been able to farm up the Evo to be able to have the Evos even to defend against a potential Black Hand push, but Black Hand does have to be careful here as this area is completely littered with teams right now.
MMW going to be pushing up behind Nightmare as well, and I believe Nightmare know it. Zoomed in, everybody's throwing damage towards this squad that's going to have to, well, put themselves in a really unfortunate position out in the open. I wouldn't envy MMW right now, but the fact they're in the top 7 squads is plenty good enough for most of them. Bursty waiting with this 30-30, still has to worry about the team on the roof. And the Watsons in our final zone are going to start getting a lot of value now, not just with their defensive capabilities, but these pylons that save teams like Nightmare from being just rained on with nades.
Yeah, the nade out is definitely going to be prevented here at the very least, but the angling out, maybe not so much. They have an interesting corner to hold, so It's not easy to take down that gen. It's not easy to even find opening damage. Meanwhile, Nightmare can actually look at both of their potential opponents up on the building and over towards this back corner. And as this ring begins to close, we see teams already starting to fall. Draco's getting cracked, but Echo Boys actually getting completely eliminated. And Black Cat has taken the roof of Glitch Gaming now. So at least one team here will have to drop down and fight it out. And likely going to be Black Cat unless they can find a different solution. Because look at the LOS, Dia. They are getting looked at by all of the teams up on the hill.
But so little ground to play with, even with the smokes in front of them. They're eating a lot of damage, and now from the side, we've got a third party coming in on them. No shot will save Black Hand now as they end up losing just the one. MMW dropping some as well, but we still have 6 squads left with Void taking the top floor. Void, who I've been waiting for to show up for the past week. This could be their game. I'm not sure if they'll be able to take it. Roof is still very unsafe. They've still got a squad looking at them from the ramp, and Glitch Gaming are still underneath Void.
They continue to hold here, and they get red loot raining down from the skies for free. So Glitch Gaming there actually just leveling up their evos off of the back of that third party. Nightmare is completely eliminated as well, and we are down to 4 squads. Glitch Gaming has been holding this spot for so long, and even though they didn't net as much value as I think they would have hoped earlier in the game, now they're sitting pretty. They have one team to work against on their left side and at least 2 more teams in front of them, but this is very doable though. A lot of the squads that are holding up top are going to be a lot more happier with their position.
I mean, Howdy have got to be ecstatic right now, despite an underperformance in Game 1. This is the Howdy, Meowdy, whatever you want to call them, team that ended up wowing us earlier this week in Series E Quals. They could do the very same here. With enough consistency, qualify for the Pro League. Glitch Gaming have got to push out into them, and they are not the only ones. It'll be 2 squads that have to fight both each other and Howdy in front of them before anything else.
Yeah, and actually I think we have a rat that is just trying to live as long as possible here, going up into the skies. That's going to be the last member of MMW, and we are down to the top 3. Prob, Garrett, and crew holding over behind this wall. We have 2 members left in the building, and there is the crypto ultimate that is going to start to hopefully open this up for Glitch Gaming. Howdy now just has to wait. They have to bide their time, and hopefully they can help rain down fire on both of these teams, pick up those kills and win it out, but it is not going to be easy. Look at the patience that they're having to exert, and the zone is actually a bit in front of them, so they're the ones forced to walk.
Decent EMP so far, and the Arc Stars really making Cody's life difficult, but now the clash starts to happen with the team below and the team above. Glitch Gaming have got so many fences for you to just fall into, and unfortunately, Void are going a little bit wide, but still going down. Blitz and Burton are out. 1 member left on Void. Glitch Gaming have got to send it forward into these monsters already, though Prop Garrett and Tanner have both fallen. It's Machin fighting it out for the win in the 1v1, but we still got another rogue squad here somewhere. Glitch are out. 1 team left. Cody left to hold it down, and Howdy again in a 1v1v1 end up taking game 2.
Wow, you can see the attrition there from everyone just trying to scrap for every last point there, but in the end, Howdy, Meowdy, it's Cody, Prob Garrett, and of course the sub doing massive work for the team right now. Tanner stepping in and helping them to pick up that dub in game number 2.
2 games, both of them ending with 1v1v1s. What's going on, Mello? This is not the Apex Legends that I thought was going to happen. I don't mind it, but it's super weird.
Yeah, I mean, you would always expect to have like the seer information that you can constantly hunt down those rats for. But I mean, Blakeu once again almost surviving later there than we expected, though they did get taken out in a 1v1v1 scenario. All of these fights, they seem to break out in some of the wackiest ways. I think there was some attention that was split there from the side of Void. So ultimately, it was actually Prob Garrett's crew that was eating damage that entire time, even though Glitch Gaming was full pushing a duo on the other side. So I don't know. It's looking a little funky, but in the end, it is Howdy who takes it down. And I mean, they were holding that spot that they needed to in a lot of the best ways. We talked about how important it was that they were the last team up on that hill. If they were the last ones there, they had the better LOS and they were able to hold out there. But they had a lot of work to do throughout the mid game to accomplish that.
I think I ran into a similar thing in my math class in 10th grade where I wouldn't show any of my work and I would arrive at the right answer, but the totally wrong way, not the way that my teacher wanted me to. That's what I felt like happened this game. Howdy did end up winning, as they should have from the position, but in just the most wild fashion. And certainly when we consider game one, it does get even crazier. This was the beginning of the Howdy dominance, though, out off towards the eastern side of this zone. Taking down Barry Veggieflex was a stepstone for them to achieving greatness in game two.
Yeah, and it was it's so important, but also so difficult to clear this launch pad side of that rotation. But they managed to do it perfectly. And the only other team that I think was doing a lot in terms of clearing sides of these rings was Black Hand. There, straight up 3v3 to take down Skies. They managed to hunt down Team Smiley as well. So Black Hand had decent cards to play there, but ultimately, as this zone closed and as the space ran out, it was the likes of Glitch Gaming, Void, and ultimately Howdy that were able to clutch it out. And honestly, Matchin making it look kind of close here, though. That PK was not quite enough against the PK of Tanner, the legend. Beautiful stuff there from Howdy.
I think I saw 9 kills as Black ended up going out. So if we take a look all the way down the list, yeah, 10 kills will get them 13 points, but it is nothing close to the 13 that Howdy got with a 25-point game. This is how games of Apex Legends were made to look. This is how year 3 is going to sort out. High kill, high fragging games, and 25 points is not bad for game 2.
That is absolutely ridiculous. We didn't have quite that spread in game 1, but here we see Howdy cementing their dominance in game 2 in a big way. 13 kills, yeah. I mean, that is ridiculous. That is more than the second and third place kills combined, though Black Hand was pretty close to the punch with 10. Even though they finished 6th, they rack up 13 points, actually tying up Glitch Gaming for points earned in game number 2. So all around great work. I like to see that improvement from Glitch Gaming as well. I think they got themselves into a more defensible spot, arguably in a position where they could kind of rack up that evo a little bit, though I would have seen them like to do more. They are able to play to that end game and ultimately find a top 3 finish, which is great for their leaderboard look.
I'm gonna give credit where credit is due as well in terms of finishing high, finishing strong, because Void and Black Hand both had a really difficult game ones where they went out earlier than expected, getting themselves basically 0 to 1 points each. And with them being able to correct that, they actually do manage to put themselves with strong mental into the conversation at 7th and 9th place on the day respectively. Howdy, surprising no one, still take first, but it isn't even by that big of a margin.
Yeah, I mean, Redeem had a great game number 1, and they held it down for game number 2. Not quite as great of a performance, but all of those points matter. They add up to keep you in contention. And Rack Attack also well within striking distance, though we are only 2 games in. They were able to show kind of that consistency, right? That's something that's really important for so many of these teams to be able to accomplish. Even if you go out early, if you can keep scraping those kills, if you can keep scraping those placement points, when you have your big game, that's when you really vault forward. So Rack Attack also keeping themselves in contention with a very competitive game number 2, though we know that we can expect a lot more from that team, and we have one more game on Storm Point to see if they can do it.
Yeah, this is what we really have to look forward to, because the teams that have been doing really well on Storm Point should be giving it their all. I've liked the pacing of Rack Attack, despite the fact they didn't have as good of a game number 2. Black Hand have gotten things under control, it seems, in the contest over by Mill, and though we're going to see that again, what I'm really excited to see is this home pace. The teams that are more comfortable here have their last opportunity to show us what their style really is before they've got to mix it up completely going into World's Edge.
So, of course, Black Hand and one of the other squads that we just talked about, Rack Attack, are going to have to win out that contest, right? Like, they are having to deal with at least one more fight where you're kind of up against some of the worst RNG aspects of the game, right? Whether your loot looks good or not. And, of course, having to deal with the fact that if this fight goes wrong, you kind of lose that last opportunity to perform on Storm Point, and that can just be so difficult. Phase 1, another squad that's going to have to deal with that contest. So here we go. We're going to see that contest over by Lightning Rod break out a little bit earlier, and I think for the most part it's actually gone the way, and I see very different teams here. I'm a little confused.
This is not the same 50-50. What's going on here? With
watching the right game?
With BR Demons going head to head, I don't mind it. I gotta say, a little extra firepower in the north never did anybody wrong, but Echoes, unfortunately, eating the frag and a lot of damage, are going to be feeling like they've been the ones hard done by. Already losing 2. Crispy Bacon, the last one left alive, and the Thermite not going to do them a whole lot of good. BR Demons, as Ring 1 is still counting down, have found their first 3 kills of the game.
Yeah, it looks like phase 1 get a moment of reprieve here. They're going to be able to play out without dealing with as early as a contest. I don't know exactly if BR Demons were dropping here previously. Might have just been a little mix-up here that Echoes boys were not prepared for. And yeah, there we see it. Phase 1 has actually moved down to Thunderwatch, giving up that space a little bit. So no contest there. And the contest over towards Mills also has not broken out all the way quite yet, though. It looks like, looking at that shield diff, I mean, like, what do you even do there? What?
Yeah, Blackhand did not get the better end of that deal. Fortunately for them, there's a little bit of loot and then an IMC armory. They can quite literally lock themselves in, get a decent amount of loot, and then come out when they like. And I've got to imagine that that's the plan. Moving themselves in for now. Blackhand will have a nice retreat available to them. And Rack Attack aren't going to be able to catch up to this.
Yeah, they won't be able to make it by the time they get into IMC, though they can certainly try and camp it, which, I mean, we've seen it succeed and we've seen it fail tragically. I think one of the most polarizing plays there is, but unfortunately for Blackhand, we might see an increased decision to commit here, because look at where this ring is pulling. I think that might be second ring pinched over in this corner, so Rack Attack might not have a whole lot of reason to move away. They might just take this gamble here, wait Blackhand out as they finish IMC. We'll find out shortly, but yeah, I mean, those 3 grays, you hate to see it.
Not exactly the drop you were hoping for. However, they are, despite their bad luck, playing really well. Retreating for the resources. They got out of dodge in time, and as you talked about, they've rolled themselves a great spot in zones. So, for a game that goes poorly in the loot, there are a lot worse things that could be going on. They could be in a 3v3 with Howdy right now, who are also really well looted up. If the IMC armories weren't there, who knows? They could have run straight to Barometer and just insta-died.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess a lot of moving parts, deal, a lot of little details that add up to a bigger picture that changes drastically every time, it seems. No one acting all that predictably here. BR Demons definitely being one of those teams that certainly isn't. So it looks like teams are already starting to populate this area, which means that IMC might have been a blessing in disguise, a very early call there that they could potentially hold for a long time here. Nightmare already committing over to this rotate that we're going to pop in and see what phase 1 is doing here. They're a member light for the time being. They are light on shields. They might be able to pick up luck-based killer here, and they are sticking this res. They do get the bat off onto Rowdy Life. And I think they're on the winning side of this fight. That's 2 members that seemingly are knocked down for the side of Berry Veggieplex. So phase 1 winning out on this one for the time being.
Yeah, really glad that they were able to now clean up these 2, especially since phase 1 has had a difficult day so far. They're on the hunt for the 3rd, but are a little bit late to the party in terms of actually buying themselves that kill, as the retreat has already happened. And my only question is whether you end up coming back for your Amigos banner or not. Blackhand have finished up their own IMC armory and now have themselves blue shields, but Glitch Gaming throughout all this have also moved onto the high ground. I think a very popular spot to be holding in this in end games like this.
And I was actually just about to mention it, so glad to see that at the very least we have a little bit of intel that's correct. I know that Impulse actually really likes the spot for setting up a car to cover your sightlines here and hold out teams. So we saw Impulse on the other big rock right across from Glitch Gaming, but to start off in this spot with a charge rifle and 3 purple shields, I mean, happy as a clam right now is Glitch Gaming, though they are starting to look at those pings of where they might be worried about running into teams, because there are certain teams that love to play that deep zone style, right? And this can be a detriment if you're Glitch Gaming, and if you have a great spot to hold, you have to lay that pressure on thick. You cannot let things slip through the cracks when you have such an advantageous position, especially when there's still 18 plus squads left up on the map.
A pick like Watson really going to help them in the war of attrition that'll likely happen as well. We saw just moments ago Howdy looking down the barrels of their guns at Void, who are right below them, and while this 3v3 won't likely actually erupt, it'll be interesting to see how Void navigate their way around Howdy and into the ring that we know is just past them, especially because Howdy can stay here for at least one more zone close, get a little bit more data, and then rotate into an even better spot themselves.
Attack actually hasn't moved even from their contest, which is an interesting decision, but I do think it makes a lot of sense because they need to be aware of all those teams that are rotating in from the north side, and I think one of those squads might actually be SZN, who we saw moving out there, as well as whatever squad is sitting here in the building. So Attack maybe looking a little hungry here, looking for some kills, but they have MMW on their backside deep in the zone as well, and they're actually crafting up. I don't hate this strategy when you know teams like Attack are on the side of the map, so they're actually going to sit on the crafter, craft up those medkits, and wait this one out. Wait until Attack commits to their next move, lest they run into Attack and have to take a 3v3 instead.
I mean, you talked about how important it is, especially in lobbies like this, to be clearing out your back. And for that reason, I can absolutely sympathize with what Attack are doing right now. They've actually doubled up on this and gotten themselves some intel off the beacon that is not too far out of zone either, giving them an even better idea of what's going to be a good spot in zone. I think, unfortunately for them, they're finding out that Glitch actually have a pretty good one, and it's exactly the position that you mentioned Rakanishu liked. Or was it Impulse? It was Impulse.
Yeah, Impulse. Yeah, and I mean, it's still a great spot. I think Impulse was holding there, that you can see that squad has actually backed up a little bit here and just giving up that space. So they are starting to walk in from the north. And I think it's important that they keep count of how many squads they likely have to worry about, right? Like, they know that there's probably a squad that's going to be walking through this lake area or through this river area over on the east towards where that Prowler den is. And of course, if there's anyone rotating deep behind them, that's yet another squad that they have to make sure they're safe from. If you get to this spot early there, right on the northern edge of ring, which is actually where they're moving now, if you're too early and you don't have that intel on your side, you won't know exactly where to expect a potential straight up commit to a 3v3, though of course the Vantage certainly helps with that.
Yeah, it is going to give them a really nice, I hate to say it because her name is Vantage, but advantage. if they hold the, I know. I'm really sorry, guys. I apologize to everyone involved, but it will give them a nice edge. There we go. On this high ground, should it become applicable. We do know that there are other squads rotating in from the north, rather, most notably BR Demons, who are actually late on the rotate and just showed up to find out they're facing down Attack on this height and are going to have to go through them, not now, but in the zone following this, something that Attack already have data on and that they do not.
And it is really interesting because here in a lot of situations, you might opt to play over towards the rock that's closer to the mill side, where we saw MMW still crafting up, still looting up on the crafter. But now that they have that beacon that they were able to pick up on the building, they opt to play keep out here, where their backside is relatively safe. A lot of the places where those early rotating teams are going to play don't necessarily have the best LOS on this area. Meanwhile, Attack has brutal LOS on a lot of these teams that are hunkered up in these buildings. There we see Bowser starting to make use of that sniper with the sniper's mark, opening up a lot of damage. Does have blues for the time being, but I have a feeling that's going to change really soon here.
I want to give a real quick, just small round of applause. Ring 2, 19 squads left.
Hey!
Much different
Woo!
than what we saw
macro
in the first games. Yeah, this is, I don't want to say an inherently better version of the game, but it is one that tends towards a lot more calculation from these teams, and it gives a chance for the big macro brains to shine, right? BR Demons maybe not exemplifying that right now because they just take a fight and run straight over it, but keep in mind, guys, macro brains do have the opportunity to shine. Kalando do not, however, and going out in 19th, they leave BR Demons as the kings of this area, and fortunately enough, also leave BR Demons not having to face up against Attack on the height since they've backed up all the way to Jurassic.
And actually, we see B. Borton in the kill feed taking out I Loved Her. So You might have cursed it a little bit there. We've already lost 2 teams off that call, but regardless, you do have to keep in mind that teams like BR Demons, if the game plan is to play edge, that is how you execute it, right? You wait until that ring is about to close. You try and gather as much information to hopefully get a free punish on a team that is holding a little bit light, not holding all of those angles as hard as they maybe should be because they're too busy looking forward to their next rotation. So BR Demons just straight up takes that 3v3, and we know they can take those, right? But right now, MMW also playing this edge, and I think they were one of the teams that was playing deepest in that edge. Literally, they just finished up crafting. They have a decent bit of shields to work with as well, and I actually do really like this rock, Dia, because they can look over towards Glitch to start to pressure them a little bit, make Glitch start to kind of force their hand on what they're going to play next. Though Rack Attack does still have eyes on them. Maybe not the most amazing position. We'll see if they can play out of it here.
It'll certainly be assisted by when the ring starts closing. Though MJ's position is tenuous, Rack Attack shouldn't have too easy of a time punishing any rotation, and as zone starts closing, it will inherently split up these 2 squads. Glitch going to be needing to take the burden of really pushing out MMW if they want to stay safe, if they, I mean, as I assume, want to win the game. Rack Attack for the moment do still have a little while though before they're forced to start considering their other options and what on earth is going to be going on in the no-name village below them, because this is where there's going to be a lot of temptation around. A lot of teams are going to come from Barometer, come from the bridge surrounding it, and really need to pack into this tighter area. If you leave your building in No Name Village too early, you could join all those teams that are falling out in the open.
You can see there Agnesha with the Eye of the Tiger, the Eye of the Eagle, starting to spam ping what was actually just a spider. So it just goes to show how much attention they are paying to this team that's on their backside, and look at how much space they're taking as well. This is also critical for this game plan, because if they expect to keep out those teams, they need to hold everything. They need to make it known that they can hold that entire hillside, and Vantage is a great character to do that as well. Again, taxing all of the late rotations, as well as obviously being able to give you all of the information that you need. And BR Demons might actually be the team that just takes up this 3v3 being looked at by Rack Attack, and they might have caught them with their pants down and with the Valkyrie ultimate on deck.
Yeah, Rack Attack are definitely going to start paying attention to this end now. 12 seconds left, and BR Demons go, oh my god, there's a Vantage on height. They know it's Rack Attack, and they also know they don't want to take that engagement, so they're going to try to rotate around the other way, and a last-minute rotation could cost them, much like it might cost SZN, although for right now, it is benefiting this squad as they eliminate Phase 1 smooth and clean.
Yeah, and this is kind of the optimal scenario, right? This is where SZN likes to play. They like to hold at those spots so that they can clear their backside. And again, even though they might not have the most amazing vantage points, when you clear out an entire side of that ring, feeling pretty happy though. Right now, Fontaine is far from happy. He gets knocked down by a grenade, and now 2 members left on 5FL. They are getting inted on by the likes of Howdy right now, though, in a big way. And Nightmare, I think, looking down on this fight as well. Not exactly sure, but yeah, great job there from Howdy. They continue to make their presence known on the map, and this is where it all starts, Dia. This is where all of the wild 3v3s, the last desperate attempts to shove themselves in the ring, start to come out.
You see that nade kill go down, and Nightmare quite rightly put up their own pylon to say, well, I'd rather that not happen to us. They've got a building nice and locked down, not inside of the following ring, but at least inside of this one, with plenty of time to relocate later on into a zone that is pulling so chaotically off to the south. It's not like we haven't seen this ending before, but it's going to mean a lot to teams that like to play buildings and simply don't have access to them in the future. 5FL have gotten their member back up and are in a 3v3 to see if they even get to see that ring. Well, they've got a Kraber all reloaded and ready to go. It can turn a fight in an instant, and that's a Fontaine even survives, getting pulled right back in. He's down, Dig is down, and 5FL are getting deleted, getting abused underneath this bridge.
Yeah, what a beautiful pinch play there. You saw how focused they were, holding down the line of sight in front of them, but actually getting dropped down from behind. And now BR Demons wants a piece of this pie. Nerf is ultimately eliminated. BR Demons, though, is still not in ring. And now they have considerably less great position. And though they do find the knock onto Dig Vibes, and they are going to start their push of their own. They have the resources to do it as well. They have the horizon to get up on that high ground. Now they are kings of this hill. And for the time being, they will continue to reap the benefits as the reapers of the edge of the zone.
Cody gets taken out as well, so this is not just any squad in front of them. It's Howdy and the BR Demons, after being taken down by Nerf twice in 2 games, have seen their kryptonite fall in the kill feed and know it's their time to shine. Aiden the Destroyer does go low, having to pop that on this high ground for just a moment. Reed's joining him for a little bit of safety friend talk time. But unfortunately for them, the fight is far from over. They've still got to cover each other's backs, and a flatline PK not going to cut it if they get sent on by a full 3-man. They still have to remember to clean up on the other side, and you got to hope as BR Demons that you're not getting through. Oh my god, why is there a Valgold right here? She's gone. What am I watching right now? Howdy are gone!
Wow, and here we get to see Team Redeem that has started to take a fight that is going to be critical for clearing out this side. They were actually a little bit in front of this, which means they might be able to pick up some of the kills that are left on the edge here. 5FL is indeed eliminated. Not exactly sure if we have tabs on BR Demons, but they're going to be able to pick up this package on the way, though. Look at where they are forced to walk through, and you would imagine that the sightlines are beautiful for a lot of the other teams. They actually get to pick up a Kraber for their troubles as well, and a little bit of a sloppy weapon swap there, but Redeem is going to find a rock, a little edge of solace here on this ring. They have some lines of sight, and so many other fights are breaking out. They actually got away with this.
No way are Black Hand and Rack Attack fighting now, finally, after so long in the IMC Armory. They're actually doing really well, too. Black Hand, take them down. Rack Attack are gone, and the very, very delayed 3v3 goes in their favor. They're top 6 now, and Black Hand have got to be feeling good after that.
A tale as old as time. Blackhand once again fighting Rack Attack for their game and for their Stormpoint lives. And right now, Nightmare also fighting for their lives. That was a ridiculous ring, Dia. I mean, how many squads dropped there just off of horrible positioning? Nightmare certainly being one of those, in Glitch Gaming capitalizing on the positioning of those teams. They pick up another red shield to add to their collection, and look at how long they've held that spot. They've gotten so much value out of it. They've gotten KP. They have lines of sight on so many of these other squads, and now they get to continue to punish all of those late rotations. We know Redeem is out in that field as well. We know that Blackhand just finished the fight, but it has to walk out of IMC, so they are slowly starting to count on all of their fingers how many KP they might be able to steal away, but they're getting pressured off for now. And Glitch Gaming now thinking about this juicy endgame. They have to get there first.
There is a nasty angle from Soupy. We saw it there, but with Skies right in front of Glitch Gaming, Soupy alone can open up an incredible push from the rest of the squad. It's up to them to see how it plays out. They've got no EMP, they've got no drone, but they've got an incredible place to fight from and a dream to go with it. Redeem and MMW going up against it as well. Actually won't get the chance to, as Redeem kind of get lasered from behind. Black Hand helping them out of the match, saying, you're not going to make a decision? We'll make it for you. You're out.
Yeah, down and out, and now Glitch Gaming makes their decision. Soupy going down almost immediately, getting one clipped by Silent on the way down, getting fully thirsted as well. Glitch Gaming does lose one, but still has a duo to work with, though a lot of other squads. In fact, all the remaining squads have 3 stacks. Lamek now trying to hold it down with that PK, but not able to do it. Blackhand on the push. Blackhand on the prowl. They are hunting, and they're finding so many of these kills, but can they recover? They're eating grenades here as that black hole goes down, and they lose 2.
Yazto is down. MMW want to thirst this, but they know there's still another squad in the lobby, so they play it from a distance, whipping out the G7s, taking out Yazto while they still can, and crippling yet another squad. Skies want their entrance into this game to be miraculous, and as they take high ground, they're looking for that last bit of KP, and it's costing them a lot of health. MMW have got to be aware of this and be able to close the distance quickly. No grab lift now to move them ever closer, but as 2 teams remain, we're going to get into an elaborate game of arenas, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got 20 seconds till it breaks out.
We also have a giant open field of water right now. That river is going to be brutal for the team on the other side. Looking at where this is pulling, I think MMW gets to hold their cover for a touch longer here. And the team that they're facing down on the other side is none other than Skies. And they have 3 purple shields to MMW's triple red. So it looks like that might have been the call. They open up a little bit of damage, and here's the engage.
Watson Pylon saved them a lot of damage, though. There's a turnaround is still possible, but I may have spoken too soon. C1 goes down instantly. MMW are too clean. This is the squad to take your 3rd game of the day.
Absolutely dismantled that last fight. That was so... It's seemingly easy for them, even though Skies was able to hold that position against Glitch on the high ground, against Blackhand over on the other side towards the south. But ultimately, that was just a beautiful final setup for MMW. They knew when to get aggressive. They knew when to clear those teams when Blackhand was free kills. And what a way to sweep things up there for MMW in Game 3.
Not even close in the end game. Really clean plays from the squad whose identity still is that massive comeback in Series E just last season. I mean, these guys have wowed me for so long, and to see them continue to do it here when it really matters, when it's their first appearance in the finals for the preseason quals, it brings a smile to my face just to see MMW succeed.
Yeah, and you can talk about DPG, right? You can talk about average placement, but you have to talk about the clutch factor sometimes, which is so much more difficult to put into numbers or put into frame. And I think that may be one of those teams that once they start to dig deep, once they start to get that momentum, they can really find a lot of the clutch moments that are going to turn the games in their favor. We see a couple of other squads that can certainly do that, but I mean, MMW looked pretty unstoppable at some point in that game. As you said, calling out that nasty angle that they were holding onto Glitch. They lived there for so long, and even with so many LOS going their way, they had that pylon, right? Their composition was working for them. They were executing their game plan so well in some of those stickier scenarios. And questionable Valkyries certainly help you get into that end game as well. Great job, though, and what a way to pull it out.
And credit to Blackhand where credit is due, though they did not end up finding the big W, the 12-point win in this game. They still had a victory, however small it may be, and compared to a lot of squads, let me tell you, it was not. Moving all the way up to 3rd place after finding Gray Shields in the initial drop, moving to that IMC Armory, taking the extended 1v1 against, or 3v3 against Rack Attack. The fact that they made it to 3rd with KP is a great victory for Blackhand, who honestly, after game 1 with the 0 points, have really turned things around.
Yeah, but there's definitely other teams that are in the hunt, and we saw their Redeem, actually the team I was about to call out there in 5th place. We saw them on that rock that Blackhand ultimately ended up clearing and actually dying near in that end game, but they still picked up 5 points on kills alone. They pick up the placement points as well. So that top 3 position, even though it's getting shaken up, teams like Redeem are making a case for why they should stay there, though MMW with a 21-point performance is going to vault themselves quite a ways. And another team that might be vaulting a little bit here is BR Demons, even though they go out in 7th, 11 kills for 14 points total.
Team Smiley also standing out to me again, placing top 10. This is their first appearance in the finals for preseason quals. And though it's only the 2nd one, they, remember, found the win in game 1. So I'll keep my eye on this team gently. I'll give them a smile and see how they end up playing things out. Oh my god.
Wow.
That's a 3-way tie for first.
Yo.
I love this game. I love this game, Mello.
Oh my god. Keep in mind, y'all, for those of you who might have let the stakes of this slip through your mind, they are fighting for a pro league spot right now, and only the 1st place team secures it. So we're already having to count down the tiebreakers with wins and kills to see that Howdy has ascended to that 1st place spot, though Redeem still in 2nd place, Blackhand in 3rd, and we see Skies and MMW within 3 points, Dia. I mean, this is absurd, and we are just halfway through the games.
And it speaks to, the level of parity that we've had. A lot of our top 10 teams have taken fights against each other on both ends, been both on the receiving end of the guns and on the given one in these 3v3s, and the fact that they've been able to trade at this high level is really impressive. It's net us the place where we are now, where it is so even going into the last couple games. Look down at the bottom of your scoreboard. Shadamus Prime, who, sorry guys, I love you, and I know you can do great things, but even 4 points can get themselves to first pretty easily. 30-30-30, not bad.
Yeah, and Calando, same as well. The Mexican squad definitely cheering for them to find some improvement here because, I mean, all things considered, we saw, what, a 25-point game from Howdy. All of these teams could be in striking distance if they have a big game like that. So definitely plenty of points to be had. We have 3 games left. We'll be hopping on over to World's Edge. But before that, we're going to take a quick break to get a little bit of water and kind of tamper down because this has been a blast so far. But we have plenty more games to go. So stick around and we'll catch you in a little bit. Welcome back, everyone. We are still here rocking for the second half of the ALGS preseason qualifier finals for the second qualifier. And that first set of games was an absolute blast. I can't believe we have a treat coming with 3 more games to go, Dia.
And it's only going to evolve. Things are the strategy, Mello, it's going to deepen because we have been on Stormpoint and people love Stormpoint. I love Stormpoint. It also tends to be a little more chaotic, and we saw teams, I think, living up to that, especially in game one. And, as we got further on, things did calm down a bit. We even gave it a shout out in game three. But World's Edge is where a lot of these players' competitive careers started. It is the map that they watched their heroes play on before getting into competitive themselves, and it is the map that they have studied, that they know their end games on, and that I am hoping we get to see some incredible plays out of.
Yeah, studied is a fantastic word to use there because honestly, like this game's meta has developed largely for the longest time around the way the characters and the teams play on World's Edge. So already we saw a big scale up, I think, in game quality. I think you mentioned it and maybe even slightly cast or cursed it in game number 3 of Stormpoint, where we saw the teams kind of start to work the map a little bit instead of just working on fighting other teams, taking up straight 3v3s. I want to give Rack Attack a lot of credit for kind of recognizing some of those spots, right? That hillside that they were holding, it was critical for them to have that presence, and they did exactly that. Glitch Gaming holding up on that top rock, also a very strong spot to hold, and they got a lot of value from it. So knowing those spots, I mean, that's the name of the game for World's Edge. And here we go, Dio. We get to see exactly that. We get to see if these teams are studied up enough, if they remember everything that they've learned throughout, but also adapted to all of the changes that have come towards the year 3.
And things are going to change even more because so many of these teams who haven't faced off against each other had those growing pains in the first game of the day, in the first couple of games of the day. We talked about those hot drops that we were getting even all the way through the 3 games, and they were constantly changing. Now that we're moving into World's Edge, everything changes again. And you don't know who's dropping where. Half of this lobby just hasn't played with the other ones, so hot drops will abound. We had a little bit of time to talk about teams and their rotations going into today's lobby as well, and it seems like, for the most part, guys are a really unpopular place to both land and rotate through right now. I'll have my eyes on how teams that do choose to take that risk fare as they move up towards the north for Zone 1.
And I think it's important that you adapt to every single lobby, right? The semis are not going to play like round 4. Round 4 is not going to play like round 3. And here, or we have some of the players and some of the teams that have been in the upper echelon of competitive Apex Legends. I mean, we've shouted out Rack Attack, but obviously members like SZN who are very experienced, right? People who have been playing this for years. I mean, we have teams in here like the likes of Nerf that have been around. 2 of these players have been around since the T1 days from 2019, right? So like there is droves of experience here, but everything doesn't carry over, and I think you have to be able to find those adjustments. Maybe something wasn't clicking quite right in semis, and it's just going to get more difficult. So adjustments, being heads up about that, maybe working in some coaches that can help you optimize that a little bit, all of that makes a massive difference when you get to the finals.
Yeah, we've definitely seen coaching and competitive experience, getting somebody with that, even if they're not bringing the mechanical skill to the actual game day, is really important. And with Skies wanting to push up right now, they've actually got the opportunity to make their own mechanical skill very much felt. I've praised this team before, and I'm sure that I'll praise it again before the day is out, but they had a really impressive performance in our very first preseason quals, and now being able to push another squad out of Overlook, get more than half the loot here, they've actually made a strong argument for themselves in the second half of the day as well.
So far, a lot of respect being shown here, Dia. No contest that broke out into brawls quite yet. It looks like members ended up, or team members were able to just split up Overlook. I believe we also had a clean split over towards Big Mod and Lava City. Many times a single team gets both of those POIs, but those also ended up being shared here. And yeah, we're going to play this early game out with a full 20 teams in the lobby. And I'm looking at my lips because we could be on the precipice of a very interesting macro-heavy game if all these teams can make it to Ring 2.
There's an unusual adaptation that's gone on in the meantime as well. BR Demons do not normally land over by Survey. Instead, normally going for places like Lava Siphon that are full of loot, but instead, they've opted for Survey and have gotten themselves a little closer to Ring, as well as the fact that we have two squads hot dropping. We already got to touch on this a little bit, but Void are throwing some damage into their backs. Pubsky and Quispy Bacon both running for their lives here, as Echo's boys have no choice but to retreat in full force.
And Rack Attack might be the ones to capitalize on this right now. They have the angles. They're starting to lay down fire. Beautiful shots from that 30-30 Bowser, making that look easy. And it wasn't even with the advantage. They've swapped up their composition here, and now they are going for the stake through the heart of the squad. Already one knock. They are breaking down the doors of these buildings. They might have gotten a bit of a reset here. Can they keep Rack Attack out, though?
Shots like that make you go, yep, that's a team of pro players, and cleanups like that make it even clearer. Echo's boys didn't stand a chance, but let's see if Rack Attack can reset in time, because we called out these pros. Well, Void are on their way, and they've got some professional experience themselves. Pushing out defensive bombardment actually buys some time for Rack Attack, interestingly enough. A great use of the cooldown to make sure they get a nice hefty retreat off. And it seems that for the moment, they're actually safe, albeit in the corner here, as Blitz comes around and nails them down to flesh and gets to continue pushing up. Sung's got an incredible off angle. Although they've lost one, Burton is down. The trade is right back onto Rakanishu as Sung wraps around the corner with that flat line, waiting for somebody, daring somebody to walk up to him. Blitz sitting alongside him, still has to fight this one out for Void, takes that off angle, finds damage, but loses his compadre, not being able to get the knock right back immediately. Blitz is on the retreat, looking for even more damage to Bowser, who's literally 1 HP in this building right now. Impulse is able to cover him, and Rack Attack somehow, some way, look like they're going to come out on top of this. It's a 1v1, and we've seen this so many times today. With Rack Attack on top, with more information, with more heals, with more data, Impulse should be able to take this fight.
Should, but can he? I mean, we've seen how these things can turn around for so many of these teams. No amount of competitive experience can change the fact that a fight can go on a knife's edge and turn on in either direction. 2 purple shields means that they have the resources in a game of imperfect information that's getting even more imperfect by the fact that both members are actually eating ring damage right now, and it's getting increasingly difficult to make top from down here. So right now, Blitz just waiting it out, being patient, and doesn't actually have a lot of great exits. Waits it out just long enough to pick up that banner, which is going to be critical if they can play out the rest of the game and pick up their teammates. That could be huge, but right now, the respawn beacon outside is actually on the side of Rack Attack, and they're going to stick it to you.
What a animal! I can't believe Rack Attack went for that. Blitz now still has to recover another banner and is going to be trapped by 2 people when this second, maybe even third member lands. He runs for it. Rack Attack got all 3 back. What a heads up play from Impulse to go for that.
That's actually insane, because there was a window there, I believe, as well. So even though they had a little bit of control in the building, Rack Attack doesn't need it, actually going all the way outside, picking up those members, picking up all of this loot as well, though might be a little bit lighter than they would have liked with how much was expended in that 3v3 scenario. And it just goes to show sometimes experience wins out there, and the heads up play nets them 2 members all the way back up. They will continue for the rest of this game, and we are 2 minutes from ring number 2 closing, still 18 squads up.
That's that professional experience, baby.
Facts.
You get your 2 squad mates in outside of ring while you're in a 1v1, easy money. Gets out, and hopefully we'll be able to move pretty far north, I'll say, because we were fighting in the furthest west location that we possibly could be, and well, we weren't all the way south. The fact is that Climatizer's basically across the map, and Climatizer's where this zone's going. SZN, however, we're diving right into the middle of Epicenter, looking for a few kills themselves. Didn't find any knocks, but seem to be getting even more antsy as they look for their own pop-off game today.
Was that a no red crack? Oh my goodness. In any case, SZN is still going to aggress on this squad. And this is, again, one of those things that is critical to SZN's game plan. They have to clear out these squads. So might as well do it earlier than later, especially when you have a good shot of having an isolated 3v3 scenario where you don't have to worry nearly as much about third parties. Though, of course, as the map gets more crowded and as we get later and later into these rings, it's going to be more difficult to find those isolated 3v3. So SZN pulling the trigger, but not exactly finding the target, it seems, as 5FL does manage to run on out of there. And we're down to 17 squads. Calando, we might actually get to see him in an end game here, Dia. They've managed to find their way over towards the climatizer side where this ring is likely pulling.
And speaking of likely pulling, I mean, we do our best along with all of the squads, but we don't have any extra information on how Zone will actually react. A lot of teams actually predicted that we'd be going Overlook and have stacked themselves up there, hoping for control of perhaps the rocks. If anything, if we were to move a little further towards Epicenter, Nightmare right alongside them are going to have to fight for their very lives as everyone rushes to exit Overlook. And Howdy, the ones going up against them, as well as many others stacked up in this area. It is going to be a hard-fought battle, but one that will happen slowly. As taking a look at the top left corner of your screen, we're going to be very quietly over the course of time pushing people out of Overlook, making them a little bit more uncomfortable before it's finally just a place you can't be anymore.
And I'm not entirely sure if Howdy has that ring information, but it looks like they're going to opt to play up on this high ground. And I think it was actually Glitch that might also be joining in on that party. So they're actually making their rotation now, which does leave their backside a little bit exposed. And you can see the pings there. I think they understand that, they know that they have to keep presence on both sides of these rocks. They have to make sure that they're not just going to get walked on, because we know how quickly a Horizon ultimate that's well placed with a couple of grenades can turn a fight. And the fight might be getting turned over as Bursty and Draco's going down a little bit low here, having to commit that bubble, and Black Hand is also here. They are still playing this Bangalore as well, so the one-way smokes could be critical for the fight here.
That's interesting. Carrying it over all the way to World's Edge throws a wrench into my conceptions about what Black Hand were doing on Storm Point. Instead, they've just gone, you know what? We think Bangalore's strong right now, and who am I to disagree with them? They could absolutely show us a new side of Apex Legends, as EMEA did this morning, whipping out things like Rampart and having a lot of success with it. I'll tell you what, Mello, Apex Legends at the professional level is changing, and for a lot of us, it won't necessarily be comfortable, but it'll be for the better. BR Demons, they're going to be forced to change policy pretty soon, as Climatizer is no longer going to be all the way in zone, and their spot specifically isn't looking too strong when Nerf are right above them.
Yeah, and Nerf now looking to get a little bit more aggressive here, are going to start their pinch onto this building. Messiah does eat roughly 75 damage and has to back on out, even with that ultimate well placed to try and drag those members out of that building. They aren't able to do it and actually give up that high ground, which arguably was about to turn into a worse position considering how many squads are about to start moving in this general direction and could be looking up on that ceiling, or on that, on that roof, excuse me, where, I mean, you really don't have all that much cover to work with, so Nerf instead opting here to move on out, but BR Demons looking to get aggressive.
Haven't gotten knocked just yet. Instead, Vayne's pushed back in. Aiden also loses all their shields. BR Demons have been haunted by Nerf all day. 2 out of the 3 games that we've played so far, Nerf have been the squad to kill them, and we might see it happen one more time. Somehow this shadowing is just destroying BR Demons, and it's destroying the Destroyer. Aiden is down, and BR Demons down 1. Now have a very difficult task ahead of them. Can they fight this out on the low ground against the squad that has plagued them day in and day out?
They were trying to trade out, but Vayne actually falls to Silent, also a member that we're not all that familiar with in the scene, but doing a great job here, holding it down and actually staving off that fight for the time. Actually, I think that's a different fight, but BR Demon still falling, and right now Force is an absolute force in nature, continuing to pressure BR Demons. That's like, what are the chances, right? Especially after we saw BR Demons potentially just on the fly changing up their drop spot, they still run into into Nerf on their rotation for Ring 3. That is just, oh my, like the fates are truly on their side.
And Nerf may not have officially gotten the notification that BR Demons is no longer in the lobby, but having taken 2 of them out, they've got just enough to say, yeah, we took him out. We dealt that death blow, because BR Demons should not, by most stretches of the imagination, be making it into first place, into any end game from here, especially on World's Edge. Blackhand, though, that's a different story. And as they Valk ult in, there are very few spots left. This is not one of them. You gotta take the other cart, my man. As Arc Stars rain in, EMPs crush him, and Yazto goes down. Glitch Gaming, this is their kingdom, and you do not contest low ground unless you are ready for hell on earth.
And the Spitfire from Match and doing so much work up on these shields, but actually Glitch Gaming suddenly loses 2, and even though they were on the front foot, less than a crumb of health left, and Glitch Gaming is eliminated. Blackhand gets away with it. That is ridiculous. They were 2 members short, but with the smoke, I think it was just so impossible to make heads or tails from that entire scenario. They aren't able to capitalize, and in the end, Blackhand will continue to play this out from the cards that Glitch Gaming has been holding since Ring 2.
And the fires of the thermite, of the hell that they landed in, it only makes them stronger. What a performance from Blackhand. The fact that they are alive at the end of that, I mean, the caliber of this squad, if anyone doubted it coming into today, doubt it no longer. BR Demons are finally officially eliminated in the meantime by Phase 1 Esports, who get the knock onto Reeds. We're down to 14 squads. Those placement points are starting to pile in, and squads are starting to drop like flies.
And Nightmare now possibly dropping onto Phase 1 Esports and hoping to turn them into KP. And they actually get the drop on them and the high ground. Nice crack here from Dracos, though they already did commit the bubble and they don't have the defensive bombardment to work with. So this is going to have to be a raw 3v3. They do have the Seer there to work with, but there's people on their backside as well, and they're likely in a pinch scenario now. They might not have fought out Phase 1 aggressively enough, and SZN is here to claim that KP.
Is this SZN's game? This is the map they were born on. World's Edge has treated them well before, and it looks like it's treating them well again. Already a knock in their favor, an instant destruction of the Horizon ult, and beams from Hakulo are opening them up to take this 3v3 cleanly. One last push is all it'll take. Everyone's batting. SCN are coordinating their push, but Nightmare are out in the meantime, and Phase 1 ahead of them don't have a whole lot of choice but to follow. Look at that fry from Kenny as he walks forward, ready to dish out more.
And Phase 1 does net themselves some KP, bullying Nightmare that ended up getting pinched by them and SZN. But now they're the ones running for the hills and actually down the hill, which is their last reprieve that they might be able to find as so many squads start to fall. MMW dropping as well. We saw members of Redeem taking damage, and look at how tight this edge is going to be. 5FL fighting for their lives against Galando, who has taken them out and now needs to recover as this ring closed. Phase 1 is also eliminated. Galando still up, but with scraps of health left to work with.
That did not look fun. I gotta be honest, 5FL didn't have a good time, and neither are Kalando right now. Rack Attack really putting the pedal to the metal and walking up on him here. Haven't actually finished the squad just yet, playing this real respectfully, lest a third party should come in. Surprised to see Rack Attack considering backing off right now, but pushing around the corner as 3. They should still be able to do this, and as I say so, Kalando go out.
Yeah, I think just a little bit wary that if Galando was able to fall in that corner position, surely someone's able to look at them, and they're eating damage there. So even though they find kills, and we see their impulse to kill leader of the lobby with 6 of them to his name and 4 more for the rest of the team at least, that is a ridiculous scoreline that they are hopefully going to continue to force into a first place finish if they are able to do it. Blackhand, one of the teams that might be keeping them out if they themselves survive, but DivQ already going down, and another team member falling shortly after. Rack Attack now going to capitalize on this. They're going to put down the CR and start off the fight to push the building.
It's a Kraber difference right now. Rack, with that weapon in his hands, is unstoppable, and it starts to become the demise of Blackhand in front of them. Already just one member left now after the chaos that's just ensued, and another one lands from Rakinishu. He is unstoppable. He is the DJ Khaled of Kraber shots, and I'm just waiting for the next one.
This is an interesting call, though. They actually back up from this building because they found a little bit of damage in front of them, a little bit of space, and I think they recognize that they can't commit to that too hard because that team will eventually walk out, and that could actually help them walk on out. But look at that commitment of the bubble, and Rakinishu almost fully cracked as they ascend towards the skies. But will they ascend towards a higher placement off this play? I'm not exactly sure. Look at how little space is left towards where they're pinging. Where are they going to land? Will they be able to play it with they have no bubble to work with, and they're just between some rocks right now.
Bowser, it's not safe on him, unfortunately. Rakinishu's got the shield swap, and another one lands, but it's a little too late for this squad. Team Smiley, who held it together through all of their trials on Storm Point, have put themselves in the top 4, moved themselves onto the top 3 by cleaning up the kills off to their east. They are ready to tango, and SCN right above them have got to be ready for a dance themselves. Hakulo's coming around the side. Klein is still healing, but this is going to be a 3v3 for the Asias.
Yeah, Team Smiley there, perfect timing, able to just sweep back through, and with those members falling now, SZN looking to eat up even more KP. Look at the fragging from Kenny with the car. That was an obliteration of Team Smiley, and now just one team left. We go from 6 to 1, and that's going to be 1 in front of SCN's placement. They take down game number 4, the first game of World's Edge. They start to ascend the ranks finally after some rough games on Storm Point, and what a way to kick it off.
I said it last week, and I'm comfortable saying it now. This is the SCN that everyone tuned in to watch. This is the SCN that played in the Pro League and that has won themselves tournaments at the top level. I'm happy to see them, and my question now after Game 4 is, will I get to see them again today?
I mean, they're showing up. They made so many of those decisions, those timings that worked so beautifully for them in so many of those scenarios. That pinch that we saw over towards Nightmare, the way that they controlled that edge even after that. I mean, so many teams were able to look at them from the carts below. We saw Team Smiley rotate out from one of those sections, and they are just able to capitalize on the timing of everything beautifully, including that swing onto Smiley. I mean, that was just absolute decimation from Carr with the Kenny with the car. It might as well be the other way, because the way that they were managing that fight was just perfection.
It was like he and the weapon were one. I cannot wait to see it again. That wasn't even the only time we were looking at SCN and going, what is going on here? We also had it in their fight up by Overlook. But before we even get to that in the highlight reel, it's time to see how Rack Attack made it into what ultimately was a pretty convincing 4th place finish. They had a lot of KP. They looked, I dare say, better than they did on Storm Point even, and I was really impressed by this squad.
Yeah, I mean, they did a great job, and honestly, a lot of teams stepping up to the plate. I know a lot of these teams weren't feeling that great about their performances on Storm Point, and so they're starting to, I guess, go back to the tried and true strategies that they've studied for so long, though the adaptation was so clear from so many of these squads, including SZN. They knew how to execute this game plan. Let's watch it back. Oh, God, like, did he even miss a bullet here? That's a ridiculous amount of damage. There were 3 reds on that team, but it was just not enough, as Zien had all the right sight lines and one lone member left to clean up there. This was, as you said, the SZN that we were expecting, and we've seen them show up time and time again. This is their second finals, and they are here to take this one down. 22 points with that first place finish.
Quite silently, though, in the meantime, I loved her coming up in 2nd place with that 13-point finish, their best performance of the day, and for their first appearance in the top 3 throughout all of the preseason quals, I've got to give them a thumbs up. I mean, this is looking really good. Team Smiley make a reappearance in the top 3 after finding a win in Game 1, and with a 13-point game, they may still be pushing themselves ever closer to those top couple squads. With Rack Attack walking away with 22 points and SZN walking away with 22, however, these guys really took the cake.
Yeah, absolutely. They took the cake. They took down so many squads on the way there, and even Calando, who I think has had one of the less I'll say impressive showings. Right, they're a squad that can just straight up frag out, but when they get out macro, they don't have those opportunities. They get zone there for a little bit longer than I think they've held throughout all of the games so far, and make do with what they had for a pretty long time. They do fall to Rack Attack, who is also another team that is starting to execute their game plan beautifully, and they actually ascend to first place. They break that tiebreaker in a big way here with all those kills that they found in that game. 42 points and a 3-point lead on Blackhand.
Rack Attack aren't just executing their game plan, they're executing most people. With a 15 kill game, 1 in 4 kills, 25% of everyone who dropped onto World's Edge fell at their hands. And with the 42 points that they currently have, yes, the gap isn't that large, but Blackhand really have to step it up. And it's fascinating that it's between these two teams once again, as it started this way. The first game of the day was a fight between Rack Attack and Blackhand. We've come back to it time and time again, and we get to see it play out on the scoreboards as these two fight for dominance and fight for that all-important Pro League spot.
And it just goes to show how important that kill or that kill point is, right? Throughout the bigger scope of how you're earning your points. Team Smiley was one of the last squads there, and yet they didn't have like the most monumental climb that I think we might have expected. So they're gonna have to keep this up. That's the difficulty of these matches, right? You can't just have one good game, call it good, go home, you get the Pro League spot, you can relax till November. That's not how this works. And SZN definitely putting up the scores that they're gonna have to find over and over again. We have 2 more games on World's Edge, but they've already jumped up the scoreboard in a big way. And I just wonder, can teams like BR Demons, teams like Nerf, can they also do it here with 2 games left? It's starting to get slimmer, those chances of them taking down that top spot.
Redeem are really making me smile, though. They're third place
Facts.
right now. Reminder that their IGL is out of commission, and they are working on an improvised, hastily trained IGL right now. With Cruzen, I will say, who is stepping in with a remarkable amount of talent. Cruzen is amazing, and that's a whole other topic. But with 34 points today, this could also be a day where they qual, because 2 more games gives you plenty of opportunity to put up more points. Howdy showed us that they can absolutely farm lobbies earlier this week, and Smiley are giving us the show of a lifetime today.
And there's a lot of squads here that can frag. Just looking at where Glitch Gaming is sitting in that top 10, they only need 20 points. Even less than that. They need less than 20 points to steal away that first place spot, assuming Rack Attack has a bad game, which we've certainly seen them have in the past. They're not having too many of those this time around. They're keeping it pretty tight, pretty consistent. And I wish we could take a look real quick at I guess some of the scoring details that we have, because it is really important to think about a 25-point game win, right? What does that mean for your team? It means you're picking up a dub, 12 points, and on top of that, picking up 13 kills. Like, it's so massive. There we see it, the point distribution. It gets pretty top heavy pretty quickly. But all of those teams that we're seeing in that top 5 to top 10 range, they aren't scrapping for all that many points in terms of placement points here.
It's interesting that you bring up exactly how the points end up working, because as I think everybody knows, with a little bit of thought, right, we know 1 kill is worth 1 point. 3 kills are worth 3 points. Rack Attack have 42 points. Blackhand have 39 points. Isn't it interesting they're 50-50ing, and the difference between them is exactly 1 squad wipe? Doesn't that make you think back to the first couple games where they were contesting each other over by mill? And I do wonder whether at the end of the day, Blackhand might look back on these first couple games and go, if only we hadn't given them those couple points.
Yeah, and it's a knife's edge, right? Like, every moment matters. Every decision, every rotation can be detrimental, or it can be the boon that your team needs to have that big game. And it can go either way. Again, Glitch Gaming, we've seen them get into decent positions. Void, we've seen them in multiple endgames. In fact, both Void and Glitch were in the same endgame that I think back to, where they played the mid game kind of how they were supposed to. They worked the macro correctly, but if they're able to find one big breakout game where they pick up the dub on top of those kills, that's what's going to make the difference, right? This scoreboard is still far from solved.
And if you guys were watching last week's games, I mean, Glitch Gaming found themselves accidentally in the position that they
bullied.
Yeah, that they chose this time around, and that made me really happy to see, because the fact is that they, after being forced into a position last week, discovered that, oh, we're actually pretty strong from here. They grew as a team because of it, and despite the fact that Blackhand took them out, the fact that they opted into playing that area with confidence has already demonstrated to me that a place like preseason qualifiers isn't just a place where teams are coming to strut their stuff and show us how cool they are and how good they are at Apex Legends. It's also where they're making leaps and bounds in terms of improvement week in and week out.
And they're doing it with the crypto, which, say what you will about that character, good or bad, they're making it work in a lot of the scenarios, but you do have to wonder if that's what's making the difference between their good games and their great games. Right now, Team Smiley getting pretty aggressed on Gambit, going down to maybe 5 HP there, but they continue to attack, and they might have a team trapped in the building here. This Overlook contest didn't break out quite like this in the first game of World's Edge, but it looks to be very different here, as Sang is trying to run away, but actually finds a nice fence play that staves off the attackers, opens with a lot of damage, but only has a longbow and no attachments to work with.
Team Smiley are no strangers to this 50-50 either, though they were pushed out earlier. Even with white shields, they've got enough weaponry, I suppose, to say they're not going to be pushed out this time. Mozam in his hands. Blakeu's going to try and round the corner there, finding only the 15 tick. Team Smiley still stay on the offense, and now with Sang down, Skies take the edge.
Yeah, you're doomed there, actually finding a nice spray with the car. So now Team Smiley is one member lower. Though CUI, not exactly a full member up in terms of health. They haven't found any resources, and the off angle here might actually take down your Doom. Not quite. CUI also going down very low. That's got to be a pixel and a half at most. And finally, they find Blakeu hiding down below the building. So an even bigger advantage opened up here, but the meds are running low, Dia.
They're like, you're Wraith, go, you're full health, just draw a little bit of pressure, see what you can do. They do manage to outlast Barry Veggieplex. 19 squads left before this fight even finishes, but with Sang going down, Team Smiley, who have been having a pretty good day so far, now find themselves in a much more difficult position when it comes to playing these end games, even this mid game out.
Oh my gosh, and it looks like there's plenty of dismantling happening over here towards this other side. Crozjo going down, so that means that Redeem is struggling a little bit here in this fight against what looks like Void and at least one other squad. Pubsky actually getting eliminated as well. And as we wait for this to play out, Team Smiley is in your kill feed, going from second all the way to a 19th place finish. That's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes when you're up against the contest.
And you know exactly how that went as well. Running over from Overlook, they walked right into Kalanda, who were looting up Climatizer, and they went, oh my god, free KP, that's so cool. that is the best thing that could have ever happened to us today. Fortunately, I will say for them, they get that 1 point. It likely won't make an incredible difference, but the boon that they've gotten may give them a little bit of extra confidence. Echo's boys feeling remarkably unconfident right now, if that's even a word I can use.
Underconfident?
Underconfident. I like that one. They're going to be relegated. They're going to be watching everybody else play this one out for the 5th game of the day. Teams are going to be making their way towards the center of the map, albeit a little further south for the final circles.
Yeah, and we actually see BR Demons there was actually putting up the pressure on the bottom left of the map at Thurnwell. So they're seemingly playing this a little bit like rank, just dropping wherever seems convenient. Fontaine dropping down in a very inconvenient spot right now in a 3v3, and they actually drop to the likes of Nightmare, who fully thirst that kill and are now on the offensive. All they have left are Watson fences and some bullets to defend, and it looks like Glitch Gaming is also getting involved in this engagement. So this team is omega pinched right now, and Glitch might not know that they have another team up in their wake. Yes, they do. Now they find those bullets after Skies is completely eliminated, and 5FL is eliminated as well. So now the building fight is between Glitch and Nightmare, and I don't know if Glitch was prepared for this one as they start to go down low.
I don't think this is looking fun for anyone. Glitch walked up thinking they had a free fight. Nightmare walked up, I suppose, knowing they had 2 free ones, as now they have taken out 6 players from the game, though all the kills didn't go to them. 4 KP and a nice chunk further towards your placement points is going to feel real good for Nightmare.
All right. I'm going to need everyone to relax for a minute. We are not at game 6. There's 13 squads left alive. I recognize that the KP here is critical, but look at how open this ring still is, and we're actually pulling bottom left slightly towards dome side, though it looks like it's most likely going to shift down towards that lava, or that launch site finish, excuse me, one of the launch site finishes. There are many back there, and I think the likes of Slacking and Adium, as well as Zian, who has opted to rotate very early into this spot, I think a bit uncharacteristic from them and what we've seen so far, understanding that they need big games here, they need the consistency, and they're already looking down at less than 20 squads, in fact less than 15 squads at this point.
We've got a fight brewing, though. Check this out. Howdy walking up behind Black Hand. 2 powerhouse squads, both full of a lot of firepower. Could be meeting very soon. Black Hand actually throwing over some welcoming shots to say, please come into Dome. We would love to entertain you. Howdy. They're going to think about it, because for right now, the rock that Black Hand previously held, also really appealing, albeit, as you were talking about, a little bit early for them.
Yeah, but sometimes that's what it takes, and I think it's that adaptability, and also relative to where you're dropping, right? If your POI is right next to the ring, you have to be able to adapt, change up your game plan a little bit. It's not just as straightforward as, oh, zone is here, deep zone. Oh, zone is here, deep zone. Or the opposite. Oh, edge is here. You're obviously not going to sprint to the edge of zone where you're sort of gifted a little bit of positioning early. So whether you're able to jog for that space and maintain it, that's what really counts. And when you're able to hold on to those resources longer than your opponents, you can win out on some of those latter battles of attrition that are ultimately going to happen when teams like Rack Attack and the other edge teams start to crash onto your POI.
This is the second time that we've seen Rack Attack pull the same strat, by the way. This was something that became, I mean, it's always been a thing, but really became popular on Stormpoint, waiting till Zone 2 and then finding yourself a scan. This time, it does happen in Zone 1, a little bit easier, especially because this is so close to home, but the actual effect of it remains the same. Having more data than your opponents who are in center ring to be able to make a better, more informed decision when it comes to how you prioritize where you'll actually be playing for that end game. If you know Zone 3 and other people don't, you've got a better idea of where the ring is going, and Rack Attack certainly have that right now when compared to the rest of the 12 squads in the lobby.
And the game has changed, right? They're not getting priority on those beacons to get as deep into ring number 3 as possible. In fact, they're using it to work out the game plan on how they're going to maneuver the edge, how they're going to bully teams into terrible rotations, how they're going to pressure teams that are already in zone to open up space for them when the going gets tough and when the circles get small.
It's amazing when Valkyrie takes off without a helmet. I just noticed that.
So unsafe.
I was like, yeah, this is actually, don't take this home, guys. Take off with a helmet at all times. Don't take off into a squad in Harvester, but if you are Kalando, I will allow it. You can do it. These guys did make their names fighting, and by God, they're going to go out fighting if they absolutely have to. Spungeedle cracks the door, does a decent amount of entry damage, and gets that reload for the quick finish, assisted by his teammates. I loved her. Our second place team from last game get Control-Alt deleted from this one.
Vamos, Mexico. What a way to just dismantle that squad. They were being aggressed on, but they just They honestly just stuck their feet into the ground and said, we're not going anywhere. In fact, you're going into our back pocket as KP. So already a really strong start for them just in terms of how they can clear out this side of the map. But Redeem is another squad that is taking up space here. And BR Demons, we know they're hungry for kills right now. They're low on points. They're low on placement. And they might be finding it as Joey Blackout goes down.
And this is blood in the water. BR Demons know it. Redeem have got to know it as well. And a full retreat of the last two remaining members has got to be in effect. Joey Blackout is written off, really, because there's nothing that you can do at that point. And BR Demons are going to continue hunting, having that thirst for blood already now going for them. Let's see if they can actually get it sated on their way into the zone.
And Cruisin actually going down in your kill feed as well. So plenty of fighting slowly starting to kick up here. And Calando actually finding yet another knock. That one was actually on to Cruisin. So Calando is involved here, and they're the ones potentially looking down at BR Demons, and I believe that's most likely BR Demons saying, we have had enough here. It's a little too risky. We can't just throw away too many games looking for that KP. They have to work the map. They have to find that placement on top of those kills. 3 KP isn't going to hurt them all that much, but there's only 12 squads left in Ring 2, Dia.
I mean, now they've pulled out the Uno reverse card as well. They could be pushing us down to 11. BR Demons know exactly where Calando are, and they know exactly how they can get into the zone. It's by passing through this bridge. It's by walking right next to Reeds. And the plan from BR Demons is, make no mistake, absolutely to take another squad out, to target Calando and make their life difficult. Zone 2 simply can't hold you for that long. You'll take a lot of damage rotating in, and from BR Demons, you'll take a lot of damage getting out as well.
Yeah, Calando's deep in the zone right now, and you can see them actually starting to craft up what is most likely the medkits that they're going to need to survive this one out and possibly make a rotate over towards the northern side, because they know if they walk into the clutches of BR Demons is not going to let them go a second time. Though now they are eating a little bit of pressure, and all of these angles they've set up, they're great if the team walks in, but not so great if you have to defend against the push yourself. And now starting to consolidate a little bit. Reeds was holding a pretty aggressive off angle over towards the tunnel, is actually even more split off now. I'm not exactly sure if this is them holding a lot of space or being pressured into a less than optimal situation here, but I mean, for the time being, they're pretty happy with their spot, and they have a lot of room that's pretty open in front of them.
It's got to be frustrating, though, not to get those kills, not to be able to capitalize on a squad that you know you could kill. Calando, with the outplay, have definitely pushed up the dial on what BR Demons can take this game and how antsy they'll be to grab some kills in the future, something we may see play out in the favor of another squad. Calando do still have to make their way in, though, and they are still taking massive amounts of damage from the zone. That the medkits have healed up just a bit, but that makes them still very antsy when approaching Rack Attack sitting center Lava Siphon, and who have already noticed this.
And I'm not going to lie to you, I think in a lot of scenarios similar to this, you don't get away with that rotation. And in fact, this rotation is even better for them in the long run. Look at the way this has pulled. I was actually expecting to see a launch site, but a hard counter pull up north towards the edge of ring number 3 means that right now we're actually going to have a zone that's very darn close to that squad right now. Up Suchi, Spongedal, and Talos suddenly just walking, in fact, getting bullied into one of the better spots, much like we've seen Glitch do.
You say up north, look to, oh, you can't even see it anymore. I was going to say, look to the northwest. Redeem have gotten both of their members back into the game and have re-entered the circle. They are far from done pushing themselves even further. They are going plus ultra in this game, in this 5th one, to make sure that their shot at Pro League is the best it can possibly be going into Game 6. They haven't missed out on the placement points. Being in the top 12 right now, they could get themselves into the top 11 if they just wait a little longer, because Rack Attack will kind of do their job for them.
Yeah, unfortunately, Calando looking to play the low ground a little bit, but doesn't actually find it. And in the meanwhile, we see Nerf is actually taken out, and Crozjo is just laying out damage in the kill feed. Curious to know how that's going to play out. Calando still left alive, though, is going to eat that Arc Star just to make sure They hold it down for now, look for those shield swaps, but there we see the ultimate from the Seer. There we see the rack attack, and they are doing exactly that, laying out so much damage on the duo. There is not much left to speak of in terms of a fight here. Well fought, to be completely honest. Props to Calando, but rack attack finds 3.
And it was a pretty simple execution as well. They saw him coming in out of the zone. A lot of damage was dealt. However, with Calando falling, they weren't the only ones. We dropped 3 squads in that time and are down to 7 teams. The top 7 remaining. Redeem still in them. Black Hand holding the low ground and pushing their way up top, where Rack Attack already have one of the best spots in zone. That RV that they just took away from Calando.
Yeah, and that just speaks to the fact that Calando might have appeared to be a decent spot, but if you're not able to hold it long enough, it's not going to be sustainable in the long term. Right now, the edge still getting cleared out by so many of these squads. Chatham's Prime has not found the success in the first 4 games or so of these finals, so they're looking to turn it around here with a couple of kills, trying to clear out this last rotation, this last team that is a gnat just in their faces, trying to keep them out from a better position. But phase 1 are the ones that might be looking hungry here and looking to play spoiler on this fight. SZN is also down 1 member, so 3 squads potentially involved in the scuffle.
SCN just got to wait and see how this plays out as well. Unfortunately for them, nades are starting to come in. They've got that res right in front of them. If they can recuperate as a full 3-man, push back out onto phase 1, it would be incredible. It would be, I think, again, the SZN that we were all looking for coming into today, but that's going to have to wait as phase 1 did get the chance to reset, albeit only a bit, and have moved back down to the low ground with Hakulo back into the game as well. SZN are far from out of this. 7 teams left, and though 2 of them are weak, they are still fighting, they are still pushing, and they are looking down their sights at Redeem, who are rotating in.
But phase 1 still doesn't have a safe spot to work with. They have the sight lines, and they certainly will capitalize on them here, finding flesh damage as this other squad walks into the field. But Rack Attack has sights on so many of these squads, and a little bit of panic seemingly here from phase 1, but they're going to commit the ultimate behind them. They're going to start chucking arc stars. They're going to find the damage, and that's actually Black Hand that gets taken out from this late rotation by phase 1, but they will start to fall as well. They have no room left to work with, and 1 back goes off, but Luck-Based Killer is taken down by Rakinishu.
That ult right back did really hurt. I'm taking a look across here. 4 squads on our screen. Where are Redeem? As evidently it was SZN, my apologies, who was being shot at earlier. This is a really important thing to keep track of if they're even still in the game, because it is possible that we missed it. SZN could be the ones that push themselves that much further. Redeem's chances at Pro League do rest on this game and how far they can make it.
And looking at where this final zone has pulled, Rack Attack might no longer have the best position, at least in terms of holding for the long term. And Rowdy going very low on the flesh health. And it looks like Howdy might have noticed that a little bit and is ready to pull the trigger on the duo. They certainly should have that information from the Seer passive as well. And pulling the trigger might be an absolute necessity here as the space to play is quickly running out.
There's just so much open ground between them right now. Even in the geyser itself, they lose 1, and actually making that push onto phase 1 so difficult for our squads surrounding them. Even SCN not wanting to commit into a place where they could take a lot of damage, where they could miss out on having a full 3-man approaching this endgame. 5 teams left. Flame's taken a lot of damage, and honestly could have gone down there with just 1 well-placed shot.
But SZN does have to split the difference in terms of what they're paying attention to. Kenny does find a knock on his Zac team now. They have to clear these teams, not only to clear out their final fight here and possibly get into a top 3 scenario, but more so to claim those kill points that are oh so important right now with how close this race is right now for number 1, which is the only squad that gets to move on to the Pro League. And Kenny right now doing quick work of this squadron that has moved on behind them. Bursty taking down Tanner in the meantime, though. No one is going down without a fight, Dia.
No, this is scrap all the way. We could get another 1v1v1 if this game continues. SZN managed to gatekeep. They clear their backs all the way in the south, and now they've got that extra data coming in. Howdy are gone. And it looks like Phase 1 may be joining them sooner rather than later. They're out as well. 3 teams left. Rack, Attack, Nightmare, and SZN on the low ground. A fascinating combo, and I will own up to it. I missed out on some squads going out. I was very confused.
Yeah, I was actually hunting for Redeem that whole time because I don't think I caught it either, but it just goes to show how quickly squads are knocked out when these rings completely run out of space. Nightmare now taking up some position, and I'm not exactly sure why Rack Attack gave this up, and it might have been just the raw pressuring from Nightmare that has granted them this spot. So they have angles on Rack Attack, and they don't even have to deal with SZN until this ring is much closer to fully closing, and we see them already playing in the corner of this rock, which isn't the most amazing bit of space, but they are at the bare minimum safe from Rack Attack. So if you were looking for a straight up 3v3v3, Dia, this is one of the most interesting scenarios I think we've run into so far.
Especially when we consider that 2 of these squads are running Gibraltar. The fate of Rack Attack comes down to Rack and Issue, and when that bubble gets used, how much space it buys them, whether it's offensive or defensive. And the same can be said for Nightmare, who have Dracos as their anchor. Right now, defensive bombardment has pushed them a little further back, has let Rack Attack retake this bridge, and here's to finding out whether that was a good idea or not. Rack Attack have opened up their angles. They're going to start taking shots from SZN as well, and Bowser's already dropped down onto the low ground for a little bit of healing, with it being really questionable as to whether he'll be able to get back up or not.
I'm not sure how this is going to play out. They do make it out and actually eats quite a bit of ring damage, but maybe just a cheeky bit of positioning that they know better than we do, actually fully resetting. But that bubble is very early, and Rack Attack is going to hit the go button on the Valkyrie ultimate.
They say, you know what, we're going to be in the sky, so you two fight each other, and I'm not sure if it's going to work. SZN and Nightmare have no reason to take this engagement when they can instead just shoot at the sky. Bowser goes down to ring on the landing, and Rack Attack have doomed themselves, leaving us in this 3v3. Nightmare know it, SZN know it, but Nightmare don't play around it. They lose too. SZN clean house, and they're gonna make this their 2nd win in a row with just a few more shots. Kenny, though, is the last one alive, and he clutches it up, thank the Lord, to find themselves their 2nd win of the day in Game 5.
SCN with the back-to-back 2 Gibbies in our end game. It's like we went back in time, Dia, and SCN back to the dominance that they were displaying during the best days of Exit, and now they're just coming up huge in these finals. They were already jumping so many positions with that game. We could see a massive shakeup in that leaderboard. What a way to clean things up for SCN.
This is going to be really important, because with these 2 wins, should we send them on, nobody is going to have any trash to talk when you're able to replicate 2 wins in a row. SZN have earned themselves an incredible day, but have they earned themselves the top spot? That's the question that I want to answer before we get into Game 6.
Yeah, in Game 6, this has gotten very much into the last opportunity, the last chance, if you will, for these teams to show up. And this is where the leaderboard split gets very dangerous. With that game, SCN might have opened up just enough room for them to just need a clean game, not even a big game in game number 6. Though Rack Attack was in that final ring, they were doing work. They do manage to outplay, for the most part, the likes of Nightmare to find a 2nd place finish, and they were collecting kills all the way there. But is it enough to hold that top spot? And more importantly, what is it going to take for another team to take it down when we get into Game 6? I think this is going to be as close to a photo finish as I think we could have hoped for, Dia.
It certainly is right now. Just taking a look back at how this game evolved, Rack Attack did really run almost the entire end game. I'll certainly call it the mid to late, as they dominated this top spot with a really nice clean push. But that domination didn't come really in the form of kills, which is going to be their biggest problem when it comes to the overall when it comes to the overall scores. Teams like SCN, teams like Nightmare really did have the edge there. With Rakatak going out in third, placement was their best friend.
And I can't say I'm all that surprised, to be completely honest. I mean, looking at this scoreboard, yeah, that placement, these are the teams that are amongst the most experienced on this map. So they have found so many spots that are so strong to play out of, not just for finding those end games, but for finding all of those kills. 9 kills, in fact, for SZN there in game number 5. Rakatak actually only picking up 5. We say actually, like 5 is a small amount. That is no joke, y'all. Like putting up 14 points is still very respectable. Nightmare coming up with 16 points to round out that top 3, and Calando actually putting up 13 of their own double digits there, even though they finish in 8th.
Very good from them. I actually really impressive to see that Calando were able to push themselves this far, as Void also, despite the fact that they fell earlier than I would have liked joining BR Demons in that fate, still managed to put up a respectable amount of points as well, 4 and 9 respectively. Really not bad when we consider the fact that placement is what it comes down to a lot of the time. They've still got to contend with the likes of, I mean, so many teams that ended up finishing above them, though. Black Hand, really noticeably, being in third now with 43 points. SZN contesting for that first spot. And it's going to come down to, really, these 3-4 squads. Rakatak, SZN, Black Hand, and Howdy.
And I mean, realistically, so many of these squads, even in the top 6, top 7 range, are still within striking distance. It's gotten a little bit slimmer. I think Redeem might be the last squad that has one of those realistic opportunities, and we've hammered it time and time again, but we have to keep mentioning it. Cruisin stepping up in a massive way, since we aren't seeing Z Davis participate in Redeem as their primary IGL. Actually, that responsibility largely going the way of Joey, who is also having to step up here, and they're still within striking distance, though they're going to need their game, the game of their lives here, if they're going to take that top spot. And Rakatak are no slouches. They are not going to let this up for free. They're going to continue fighting, and I wouldn't be all that surprised to see him in another end game ring, which could spell disaster for all the teams in the top 5.
Oh, it certainly could, and especially with the fact that they actually finished, I believe, second last game, so got a few more placement points than I otherwise thought. They are feeling a lot more comfortable. I will say, however, that with our last game of the day, even these top squads cannot let it all go, because should you fall early, should other teams overtake you, you will be losing points for the future. SCN cannot go all out. They cannot search solely for the kills at the expense of all else, because while it may mean Pro League for them on the good end, it could also mean that Black Hand and Howdy overtake them, even Redeem overtake them, to be able to push themselves a little bit further on in the road for qualification later on down.
And I can't imagine Dia this year. This is why we sit behind the mic and cast the thing, right? Because the amount of pressure that is riding on game number 6 is almost insurmountable, just the ability to conceive it. Because even if you are Rakatak, where you're sitting in first place, you've worked so hard, you've culled through something like 30 plus lobby, or 30 plus groups of 16 to 18 to 20 teams, and to be here in the lead coming up on the final game of World's Edge, in the final game of the finals for the ALGS preseason qualifier number 2, literally on the precipice of qualification. The mental fortitude required is just ridiculous.
I mean, especially when we consider that you're playing all weekend. It isn't just today. These finals, I mean, making it all the way here is hours upon hours of Apex Legends played over the course of the past 2 days. And to make it here and then go up against all of this, the hardest lobby that you've been in, on a day where a lot of people are at work, mind you, means a lot, work or school, I think, depending on your Apex Legend. Last game, though. And for some of these teams, for most of them, we'll be saying goodbye for a week. For one, we'll be saying goodbye for good, as we'll send them on to Pro League. Let's find out who they are, who the lucky team is, and who we get the chance to see once again. Dropping in for the final time, we're looking for 50-50s. I know I am, Mello.
Yeah, and there I think we see it over on the northwestern side towards Countdown. We saw this contest before, though it played out in a pretty extended way. No team's trials, and we've actually seen Blakeu's team there moving towards survey camp. So I think the only real contest here might actually be somewhere towards the middle there. That might actually be 3 teams, Siphon, BR Demons being one of them, who is certainly hunting for kills right now. They're looking for a 30 bomb right now if they're going to qualify, and this is how it starts.
The 99 and the Volt at short range are going to be really valuable. Actually putting up some impressive numbers. Reeds does find a crack. But without the kills, it essentially means nothing. As all everybody's going to be thinking about is what the actual points dictate. BR Demons are still looting up. They still haven't got shields that actually look that good. But with a fight coming their way, they've got to be getting pretty antsy.
And actually, they're the ones that seem to be the aggressors, even through all the trials and tribulations of their loot. RNG actually pushing up onto, I believe, Nightmare, who has just whiffed on one of their Syracuse. And Reeds doesn't whiff all that much, but does end up getting knocked out, getting looked at by 2. And now BR Demons on the push. They are able to knock down Dracos, though. There's another member completely thirsted, and they're going to be playing as a duo for the rest of the fight. They take down Bursty, and now just one member left standing for Nightmare.
Nightmare, who were in control of that fight almost the whole way, lose control just as quickly, but the fight isn't over. BR Demons, they get pushed, and it's by Shadimus Prime, who want vengeance for today. They, after placing, what was it, fifth in last week, they're the recipients of another third party, but are still looking for these kills, are still pushing themselves to be the best they can.
And listen, Dia, I'm not a programmer by any means, but I do certainly know that if game 6, then ape seems to be how these tend to go. And I mean, right now, it hasn't accelerated quite as fast as last game, I want to say, though the third parties have certainly been swift here in the middle of the map. So, or sorry, bottom middle of the map, as 2 teams fall in Lava Siphon and Chatham is Prime on the winning end of it all. And keep in mind, it's not just this game and really this qualification spot in the #1 spot that matters. All of these teams need to continue racking up points, because the only other way you qualify, if you don't pick up a big dub on one of these preseason qualifier finals, is by the total points that you rack up. So even though you might not be taking down this qualifier, every single point counts.
Skies have already been pushed up on by Calando, a team that we've been keeping our eyes on all day, and for many of us all year, including the past Challenger circuit. The Skies are doing an excellent job of repelling them, even without that inbuilt synergy that we've seen Calando give us under the TPM banner. The Skies are still doing really amazing work out here. Unfortunately, they do lose Doom, and maybe have started to lose control. It just takes one moment to turn this back around, but this is a game played in seconds, played in pixels of health, and for Siwa, it's going to be a 2v1, and that's a lot of pixels of health, my friend.
And phase 1 actually joining the party here, trying to pick up some extra pieces that are left over from this pie. They do manage to thirst out spawn Jeetle, and they know there's members running for the hells out into the zone. So Rowdy Life is now on the hunt with the Seer, and I can't even imagine how difficult it is to make anything out of this Seer passive in the zone. But Rowdy Life seems to have a read on what's going on. They want this KP, and even though phase 1 might not be in striking distance of taking down this qualifier, like I said, all of those points will matter if they jump up a couple spots in the ranking. Those are big points that they can carry on to the rest of the qualifiers and maybe find a Pro League spot that way, though. Of course, there's plenty of teams like SZN that are more than happy to play spoiler.
They're right next to each other. The 2 top teams are sitting right next door. Of all the things that could have happened, SZN and Rack Attack will get the chance to determine each other's fates and will be sitting next door all day long. And as this zone pulls probably all game, I don't think either of these guys are going to have to move until maybe ring 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, just in terms of the raw ring predictions that we can make over here behind the desk, I'm looking. I've seen this one many a time before, and there's a good chance that one of these buildings, maybe that Dorito next to them, but one of the 3 could potentially be where we see this end game. So Rack Attack more than posted up. They've got a charge rifle on Rakanishu, the classic Gibby sniper work that they're going to use to move up those Evos, jump up the Evo ladder. And I mean, what can you say? Both teams are so hungry for this spot, Dia. It's going to be a brutal endgame to watch.
Echoes boys, also pretty hungry it seems, running Bloodhound Octane. I don't think a whole lot more says fight unless you want to include a Revenant in the combo. Void, unfortunately, either don't want to or don't get the chance to, and probably both now to fight, as they've already been whittled down to one member. Glitch Gaming wanting instead to test their metal, breaking down the door, take it out, 5FL with 2 taps to the face. That's it, Lamek, you show him.
And we critiqued this team a little bit for sometimes their inability to clean up those fights, to make them look crispy, to make them look clean. They find themselves either by their own volition or bullied into them some great spots in these mid games, but executing on those fights is critical, and they do it here. So they might be seeing an end game to continue to jump up those ranks. Not exactly sure if I'd say they're within striking distance of the top, but again, they're going to continue to make their name known. They're going to continue to exert dominance in the lobby where they can. Sky certainly won't be doing that as they're knocked out.
You see Thunder rolling through, and you know Black Hand are here. The only team to have run Bangalore on all 6 maps today continues to do it, to press their style, and the style that has gotten them to 3rd place. 43 points for them. It's just technically 44 now since we are in the top 15, but as we keep going, eliminating the squads ahead of them like SCN and like Rack Attack is going to be their necessity should they want to push themselves to the Pro League spot, and also the hardest thing that they could possibly do in this lobby, as Rack Attack and SCN are on the opposite side of the entire map from them.
Yeah, they are a long ways away here. And speaking of teams that have already made their way here trying to fight with the top dogs, it's actually Berry Boys. Actually, I wish I could call them that, but Berry Veggie Plex is their name. Don't you forget it. They're actually holding up that back rock, and we already see the rotations coming in from some of the squads that are more than familiar with these rings, Dia. That's actually Redeem that has moved towards the early spot over towards those back rocks where they can sort of hold those teams that we see on the eastern side, the likes of Black Hand, and we see their Slackings team, as well as Howdy, who's rotating into this choke, and they can continue to pressure the buildings over to their left where these end games often end up pulling to. So we could still see a pretty big game here from Redeem.
So if we look at our top 5, 3 of them are in the bottom left corner surrounding Berry Veggieplex, and in the bottom right, 2 of them were right next door to each other, surrounding, who just took to this guy? Chadamus Prime. Black Hand now going on the hunt. Could just be finding themselves going up against Redeem if they're not careful. Or rather, howdy, as if they're not careful. Black Hand, you get those shields broken. Yazto almost falling as well. 1 shot on this corner, but it's got Shoop to cover him. Garrett's down, Cody's out, and we're going to see Howdy, our 4th place team, eliminated just like that at the hands of Black Hand.
And it looked close when we were looking at Black Hand's perspective, but I guess all of the shots were going the way of Howdy. They end up eating all of that damage and end up getting knocked out. MMW now also fighting for their lives here a little bit. They seem to have taken out Chadamus Prime, so they have this room to work with as well. And we've seen these zones on seldom occasions, but not zero, pulled towards these jungle gyms, though. Likely right now they're going to be trying to figure out where exactly they want to play from here, because that open field in front of them near those blue boxes doesn't exactly have the most cover, and they don't have a Gibby, right? No one is running compositions that have a lot of the staying power like a Caustic or even the Watson, though we do see Redeem doing exactly that. So yeah, a lot of decision making that's going to be critical here as this ring closes, but I'm not gonna lie, we're a little slim on teams.
I really appreciate these Watson fences. I don't care if they're effective, although I know they are. But they are geometrically, like, thank you, Cruisin'. Just from everyone watching the stream, thank you for the beauty that you've just given us. Redeem now not only have themselves the most beautiful, well-lit spot on the map, but also have a pretty darn powerful position when it comes to this end of the game. The real weakness of an area like this used to be that you just eat defensive bombardments from the sky, but since we have so few Gibbies in the lobby, that weakness is going to be mitigated by not just the lack of legend, but also the fact that you've got a Watson.
And this is an interesting spot. I do worry that they might struggle with some of the LOS up on that hill where we saw Blackhand just a moment ago. We obviously have MMW who can look at them from jungle gyms, and there are plenty of squads already in these buildings. There we actually see Impulse, who's opening up a lot of the space that Rack Attack is holding. So these squads are playing a little bit more carefully than I think I'm used to from these positions, which means that for the time being, Team Redeem not in a whole lot of danger, and maybe to play it out from here. I think the only other squad that I worried could have pressured them was actually behind them, and that was actually Barry Veggieplex, who didn't like that spot for the long term and moved out as well. So this end game already starting to get populated by the likely suspects that we know need to have big games.
Big props to Void, who, having been whittled down to 1 member earlier, have gotten themselves back up to 2 with some shield swaps and a decent bit of loot to push them into the end game. It is still all about collecting points for them, though Void will be unable to challenge for the top spot in today's lobby. They will be looking at future placements and are one of the squads that has joined us for the 2nd time in the preseason quals, meaning that they already have an advantage when compared to the 10 teams from last week that didn't qualify.
And one of the teams that is having their first showing here is FaZe 1, who right now are getting hard gate kept from the zone. And plenty of squads are hungry for these kills, which means FaZe 1 is going to have to take a very long rotate, which doesn't just mean they might run into another squad here, but it also means their rotation ends up being out wide open. We said they're the choke that they're most likely going to walk through, and it might come down to a coin flip Valkyrie ultimate with very limited information, trading out shields right now, making use of those meds, making them go as far as they can, which means that if they're pinched for resources and they're pinched for positioning, this could spell the end of this squad.
Fortunately for them, there are resources right ahead if you could only get these kills. And I don't know if FaZe 1 are going to literally pull the trigger on it since they've got so much at risk, because they've got 9 seconds until the ring. It's a good call to be able to group up, get that Valkyrie, take to the skies, and push themselves that bit further. We know there's not a whole lot of information here, and all I can say to FaZe 1 is best of luck on the landing, because you choose the wrong spot and you're out.
And I will say, of all the times you might take a Valk ultimate, this is one of the lobbies where you might get away with it. And in fact, they are hardly punished. Zach only eating 1 cell's worth of damage on the way down, and there's only 12 squads, Dia, so plenty of room to be had. Echoes boys finding some kills of their own. Pubsky actually taking down Sung. And so they're actually holding up on these buildings, but strangely enough, there's actually quite a bit of room to work with in Thalas with that Bloodhound and Crispy Bacon on the Octane. They look like they're hungry for blood. They haven't found as many kills as maybe you'd hope this composition would convert, but they're still here.
Looking pretty good. Echoes boys certainly haven't minded so far, especially with this aggressive composition that most people would have expected to be punished a lot earlier. They've actually made look nice, and it speaks to the fact that in ALGS Year 3, so often, people play in their own style actually looks pretty good, especially when the lobbies get chaotic towards the end. Knowing your game plan and at least being on the same page as a team, as Echoes boys are, has netted them a good bit of success so far. Not in the top 10 just yet, but with 2 squads left to go, and a minute ticking until that ring pull, we've still got time to drop them.
Got plenty of time left, and look at the space that Blackhand is opening up, and it's the likes of FaZe 1 that they're punishing. And here we see once again in a not horrible position Glitch Gaming, who we saw take that fight earlier, but they are gonna have to move. And look at that, Dia. That prediction goes exactly the way of Rack Attack and SZN in zone number 5.
They called it, and then we called it. Credit where credit is due. They did it first. But we
did it after.
We saw the zone, and you know what? Unfortunately for the teams surrounding them, yeah, you've got to push up now, and that includes you, Redeem, sitting around the edge, hoping that this 5th place is going to be enough to rocket you into first. With 12 teams left, placement points are already pushing Rack Attack and SCN a little far out of reach. And I'm worried about Redeem, whether they'll get to qualify today, although I am by no means unimpressed by their performance.
Yeah, absolutely impressive. And again, can't stress enough how critical it is to recognize the fact that they've done this with a substitute. So we'll tune back in with them hopefully a little bit later. But Echoes boys right now, the ones looking for these fights, they're finally getting aggressive where aggression is available, but actually losing two as they do it and punished now for the aggression. Crispy Bacon in between a rock and a lava pit has to run back towards the zone, back towards the team shooting him, and he's just moving, trying to live a moment longer, end up leaving this experience a little bit longer, but it is not to be. And this is where the push starts to happen for Redeem. We were calling it out a little bit earlier. SCN doesn't want to get too aggressive. They don't want to risk holding crazy angles up against this team. And for the time being, Redeem finds a corner to play with. They have most likely a Watson gen that they can use to prevent the nade spam, and they have the roof to work with.
Void unfortunately do not, and as SCN start to wrap around the corner, they are finding some really good damage. A heads up Horizon ult makes things so simple for them, pushing out and taking down two members of her team, although not eliminating them just yet. SCN cannot leave the safety of their building. They are playing safe. 3 members all on blue, not wanting to push it that extra little bit as Rack Attack takes space like nobody's business.
I mean, they own the western hemisphere of this ring, which is just insane right now. SCN looking to clean up their kills, and they're most likely going to find one that's on a cruising. So I believe a duo left for Redeem. Could be wrong there. I see at least one body up there. We know they're still in this fight. But SCN doesn't exactly have the best resources to work with, and that's the risk of getting into these spots really early and not having teams just int and crash into the zone that you're holding. So they're still sitting on 2 blues in this end game, whereas Glitch Gaming, who was eliminated, we saw them on 3 purples. Excuse me, don't know where I got that extra member, but yeah, they had plenty of resources. So SCN a little light on tools to make this thing happen. Meanwhile, we already saw that Rack Attack is taking up space. They've got shields, they've got bullets, and here come the nades.
Oh, the Watson gen is just enough. That is painful, and it's enough of a heads up that Crows Joe gets out of there. Kalane's not going to be able to clean up the kill today, but we've still got the confirms at the very least rolling in for them. A singular point going over to SCN on the day so far. Now only able to play the one exit to their building, an exit that I'm sure Rack Attack would like to be watching if a wall isn't in their way, but that 3 other teams certainly will be.
Yeah, and there we see those teams that are going to start to crash. We actually see Berry Veggie Plex still alive. Team Nerf now walking their way in from the northeast side and have some room to play with, though. It's going to be slim, and they could certainly get naded out. They don't have a Watson to work with, and they don't exactly have angles to stay offensive and lay out the damage. So right now, our top 5 is here. We get to see all of the squads, and we get to see the defensive bombardment on exactly that squad, and they're going to have to eat it.
I'll be honest with you, I don't even know if we see any fights right now, because the nades should be enough to clear out most teams. Force is already knocked and gone. Nobody really wants to push out to finish off these kills. Instead, you can wait for them to come to you. Berry Veggieplex, the only squad that might extend for them. 2 full health members, and they're thinking about it. But I suspect we're waiting another 30 seconds till the fights really break out.
Oh, absolutely. And you can't deny, you can't forget, excuse me, that Crows is still alive up on the roof where SZN is holding. So while Rack Attack has a considerably better position than many of the other teams, they also have, I believe, a defensive bombardment to work with, if not the bubble to use later in this game. So Berry Veggieplex can't get too wild here, and it's actually getting a little too wild. That's going to punish them. They're a shot in the back by Rack Attack, and I just think a little bit of a lack of awareness there is going to punish them in a big way. They're down to 2 members, likely a thirst coming out, and Berry Veggieplex is now having a gonna have to face down a much more difficult end game as Messiah and Turn start their push.
SCN have identified what I think we all have, that as the last 2 3-man squad, they've got to find some way to whittle down Rack Attack. This is their arch nemesis, and though they don't know it's Rack Attack, they've got just enough data come to the conclusion that this is their best chance at winning the game, and therefore qualifying to Pro League. Only 4 points separate these two teams that are now right next door to each other, just across the crates, and SZN work together with everyone in the lobby to eliminate that last member of Redeem, pushing themselves to top 3.
And right now, it's all about the win, right? If SZN wants a chance, they need a win here. They did not pick enough kills. Going zone, and they're going to have to eat a defensive bombardment. There it is. There's the commit, and oh, Clint almost going down. He's still low.
Rack Attack are going for it. There's the bubble. The fry comes back from Kenny, but nobody on Rack Attack's gone down yet. Instead, Rakanishu has lasered him with the bolt, and Kenny's got no chance but to escape. Unfortunately for him, he gets out-angled by Impulse. It's the attack that Rack was known for, and Nerf sweep in to clean it up for the last game of the day. They take the victory, but Rack Attack, they send themselves to the Pro League.
Yeah, I think it's about done and dusted. We're going to take a look at the math because public math always curses me, and we just need to know, right? We need to see it on the scoreboard, but what a way to close things out. What a final game. We saw that they had a perfect read, near perfect read on zone number 5. They held it down for so long, and SZN did much the same, but unfortunately they were behind on points. They did not rack up kills with their positioning, and I think Rack Attack might have just shoved their way into Pro League with that game end.
I'm doing real math right now because I don't even know whether
I don't know who got the kills.
Second or third. I know that they got a kill on Redeem. I know they got at least 1 kill on Redeem. And I know that Rack Attack got at least 1 kill on them, but with the numbers being so close, it should be Rack Attack. And yet my math could have been wrong. We'll find out a little bit after these replays as we take a look back at our final game of the day. Make no mistake, though, either of these two, I'm going to be very pleased with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we saw the inevitable Game 6 effect on a lot of these players. Credit to BR Demons. They understood that their only chance here of stealing away that qualification spot was to find something like a 30 bomb, kill half the lobby, and then win the game. So they had to start somewhere, but they aren't able to execute. And I think a lot of squads were just so nervous here. I think these were the two teams with the most nerves and the most on the line, and they played to a strategy that I don't think we've seen really just at all throughout this tournament, right? No one is committing to this deep zone plays like that, and certainly not the likes of SZN. And yet just with the pressure and with the possibility that it would be enough to take down this game and get enough points to sneak into Pro League, it might have actually been their downfall.
It is such a good zone. This is really fun. I really like this zone. It's such a good zone that when you see it, when you get that scan, you know that you have to play these buildings. There's just no choice. We'll take a look back at, oh my god. All right, we're not even going to take a look back.
Oh god.
This 23 points, SZN 14 points, Rack Attack 11 points, and I do believe that Rack Attack with that should still be ahead of them because the difference between these two was 5 points, not 4. Rack Attack barely.
Wow. And I mean, well deserved. They played out of their minds today. We saw them in, I think, at least 75, if not all, of the end games that we got to witness today. Rack Attack is your second qualified team for the ALGS Split 1 Pro League for North America. They will be joining Esports Arena as well as the massive stack of high caliber teams that we all know and love. And I think that they're going to make a big impact there with how they played today. If they are able to continue to adapt, if they're continuing to learn to improve, oh, I mean, just so well deserved. This team, I think this team was one of those teams that we had on the docket for potentially taking this one down, and I'm really glad they did.
You know, having met the members of Rack Attack at Champs, you know that they're all really sweet, and you know how much this means to them, and to see, I mean, not just Bowser make his way into Pro League alongside this duo, which is incredible. It's in its own right given his career. But to have Impulse and Rack, who were on Noble in the Pro League last year, re-qualifying once they've finally gotten back together after what seems like I don't know, months of strife of trying out different rosters. This is a blessing to the pro scene. These guys who have been around for so long, they still got it, and they're going to be giving it to them in Pro League. A massive congratulations to Rack Attack.
Yeah, and two members of the Farm Boys come through. Shout out Farmer Lucas, who was formerly on that squad as well. But Bowser slotting in just beautifully. I think bringing that damage, that final just reliable damage that ended up turning so many of those fights, and obviously the natural talent and the natural knowledge that this team has gathered throughout their years in the ALGS and in Apex Legends. They put it on in full display here, though. I'm not gonna lie, if I'm season SZN, excuse me, they are going to come back with a vengeance for Q3.
Their consistency has already improved by leaps and bounds going into this week, and it was the very thing that we asked this squad. We went, please, God, you're talented, but just do it consistently. And this week, winning 2 games, placing in the top 2, in second place in the last one, farming up kills along the way. They are going through their, I didn't watch Dragon Ball Z, but what's that guy's name? Their Goku evolution. They're achieving their final form, and I am really looking forward to seeing SCN. I got one last thing to say, Mel. That one last thing to say before we go. You remember how I talked about how Blackhand and Rack Attack were going up against each other the whole time, and how Blackhand could look back on this and go, "Dang, 2 points." Those 2 points were the difference between Rack Attack and SCN at the very end. The first game was what let them win the last, was what let them move on to Pro League, and that's poetic, if anything.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you pointed that out. The fates were really on Rack Attack's side. It came down to potentially one contest, though. You have to give him credit throughout the entire tournament, throughout the entire final set, right? That was 6 games where they just consistently performed over and over again. And for everyone watching at home, you have to remember that they had already gone through a colossal bracket across 3 days. So for them to be here, for them to finally earn that spot, I think there's few teams that deserve it as much as they do. Great work for them. And yeah, I think that's going to about wrap it up for us. Thank you everyone who has joined us today. We have to give a huge shout out to our team behind the scenes. We have CD6 and of course Beamic, Bean. We've got Rose. We've got so many people working behind the scenes, Parks, that made this possible. And thank you to everyone watching. Thank you, Dia, for joining me. And we will hopefully see you in future ones. That's it from us. Catch you guys later.